Good morning, interweb. Welcome back to the Artifexian podcast. German does not, in fact, have a massive case system. Explained. Intertextuality in relation to the problems with new Star Wars. A Bank of Artifexia submission that has Bill do a guessing game. Yarte Yarlin suffers a mutiny on board the Nomad. We talk a little bit about Vowel-Consonant Harmony. And then we wrap it up by discussing Dune. All of that plus lots more in this month's episode.
Do you like beavers?
I guess I take or leave a beaver. They're industrious animals, and they come with a fur coat. It must be very warm to be a beaver.
Yeah, and like it's saturated with oils, I think, so it's quite waterproof, and they don't they can go in water and not get waterlogged and cold that way. There's a woman on TikTok who's a beaver rehabber, and has a lot of very good videos of beavers, that she is rehabbing and like she raises them and then releases them into the wild when they're grown. But they steal things, obviously, to build dams. They have this urge to build dams and block up waterways and stuff. So she had a lot of videos of them doing that. But they're really, really gentle when they steal stuff. They don't chew on things. They just steal them. So like it kept stealing shoes and like stools that had kind of bars at like beaver height. The beaver would like bite it and try and drag it away because it's like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. It's a nice big piece of wood I could use to build my dam. But it didn't chew into it. It was really gentle with all the things that it stole.
Oh, so the cartoon image of the beaver chewing through every piece of wood in its vicinity is wrong. I think
they will probably do that to knock over trees and stuff, but for whatever reason, in this beaver that she had was being really gentle with the stuff it stole. Aww. Maybe because they thought it was already the right size.
Yeah, or maybe they just haul it to the potential damming site and then like assess the situation and then they'd say like that chair that needs to be reduced. Now let's reduce.
I mean that's logistically sensible, isn't it? Right? You don't want to do like saw everything. If you've got a big project like a dam is, you're not going to, size all of the concrete blocks at the factory and I don't know what I'm talking about, man.
Well, I was about to say, like, I think if you're German, you would do that. I think the Germans have a system of building houses where it all comes pre-packaged and made out of a factory, and it takes like 2 days to put up a full house. So I'm not sure that analogy quite holds, Bill.
They had that in the American frontier as well. You could order houses out of a catalogue.
That's mad. This is mad. It's so weird that we just don't do it like this. But anyhow, the beaver. Yeah, but if the beaver were to take that chair and then disassemble it into smaller parts, they'd have to move all those smaller parts either at once, which would be borderline impossible, or make several trips. So just haul the chair to the damming site and then chop it up.
Yeah. I think it makes much more logistical sense.
Yeah, they're smart kids, the beavers. We will do the show, but my favourite animal remains the raccoon. I love raccoons. Raccoons on the internet with their little hands, and they always like do the little rubby thing with their hands, and they wash their hands, and they're just so like, obviously they're gits, and I'm sure they're incredibly violent and awful and have all of the diseases, but like in video form, they're the most adorable things ever. Love them.
Kennst du wie heißt Raccoons auf Deutsch?
Nee.
Waschbären.
What? Wait, washing bears?
Yeah, because they're washing their hands.
Oh.
That's what it looks like when they're doing that. They're called Waschbären.
Oh, that's
Wash bears.
Cute.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, German being real literal again. I think the word for seal in German is something like a Meerhund.
That makes sense, yeah.
I think it's like a sea dog. Let me just fact check that. Hold on. Google Translate.
Okay, I've got two translations here from Wiktionary.
Oh, very good. What you get?
So Robbe, R-O-B-B-E.
Oh, okay.
And Seehund.
Seehund. Okay.
Seehund.
Yeah, so a sea dog, which is cute and kind of
totally accurate
and piratey as well, like sea dog. I think it's really cool. Anyhow,
sea dog used to be what sharks were called in English.
Bill, we really need to do the show.
We do really do this. I had one other very important point. Sloths are called Faultier auf Deutsch.
Oh, so like
lazy animals.
Lazy animals, yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so u/DFYX writes into us to call me out in a nice way about my misuse of the word massive last episode with regards to case systems. I think I said something like German has a massive case system. Just for the record, just to clear my good name, German has 4 cases. I am very well aware that that's not massive in the grand scheme of things. u/DFYX lists the likes of Latin with 6 cases, Lithuanian 7, Sanskrit 8. There's a whole bunch of Indo-European languages that have more cases than German. Massive was the wrong word to use. I think I meant to say something more like more robust than English, something like that. So just, yes, German, 4 cases is not a lot. I know this. Please and thank you. Yeah?
Fair enough. Yeah, agreed.
And then we have u/Rec Jensen. We had this little debate about Star Wars on the last show, and its pros and cons and where it went wrong and what was right about it. u/Rec Jensen brings up intertextuality as a problem with the new Star Wars. Intertextuality, for anyone who doesn't know, I think a good way of summarizing it is that it's like a story is reliant on you knowing about other bits of the story that are in other media. Or other books. So the idea is to fully grasp, to fully get a work, you need to consume it in loads of different forms. I think, is that an okay definition of intertextuality?
I wouldn't say that works as a general definition, but that outlines what the problem here is.
Oh, what's a general definition then?
It's just kind of relationships between different works.
Oh yeah.
So that they refer to each other. They have some kind of thing like that. So you could have it that it could be a lot more subtle and it's not required for comprehension. And that would still be an example of intertextuality.
But hang on, when is intertextuality not intertextuality? Like, so if I'm reading a linguist paper and the linguist say a linguistics paper and the linguist says as per the argument made in Grunwald 2020, I will yada yada yada. The fact that you need to go and read Grunwald 2020, does that mean that that's a example of intertextuality?
I think it's more to do. I maybe you could make that argument. I think it's more to do with kind of literary text, right, rather than maybe not. Now I'm not a. I don't know what this field is, a literary theorist or whatever. But I think it's more relevant to kind of literary and artistic kind of things.
Okay. So, what do you think? What's your thoughts on this? Do you think intertextuality is a problem in Star Wars? Because I actually don't really know of the surrounding works per se with the new Star Wars. I kind of only know about the mainline films and then the spin-off films. I haven't really watched much else. I don't know about the books or novels or comics or whatever. So is this a thing that you've noted, that intertextuality is a problem with new Star Wars?
I think the issue is that every little thing is kind of given massive significance, and every little kind of throwaway moment or throwaway character like has to get this their own focus and be tied into the main narrative in some way, which is, I mean, that actually for me serves to make the world smaller, that everything has to tie back to this central thing, and there's sort of a fan obsession and a demand that everything has this like super tightly connected relationship, which, I don't know, just like let things exist on the fringes and let things happen over there, and let things just kind of intersect and then go off in different directions is just it's more believable, and it's more I don't know, it's kind of more satisfying.
Wait, so your problem isn't then intertextuality per se. Your problem is just one of, like, the creative process. Like, they are choosing, their creative process is, we want to explore every nook and cranny and wrap it all together.
It's their approach to it, yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily imply intertextuality, does it? Because you could do that all in films, for example, and you can have it in such a way that no comprehension is lost. It's just that they'll explore every little bit of detail and tie it always back. Do you know what I mean? Because doesn't intertextuality imply that you need to consume everything in order to understand what the hell is going on?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
No, that's what I was saying at the start. I don't think it does. As like the kind of the normal usage of the term, it's just that there are relationships.
Okay. Right, and your problem there is that there are too many relationships and they're all tying back into this one kind of thread, and that closes off the world.
Yeah, and that things kind of aren't just allowed to just be.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Like, I said it at the time before the sequel trilogy came out, that I was like, I think it would be a great shot if they just didn't refer to the Skywalkers at all. Set a series of 3 movies back at, like, you know, the dawn of time when the first Jedi arose, and no relation to Skywalker or anything we've ever had. Just make the universe feel so much bigger. It's just a bit mad that, like, we've had 9 movies all dealing with this one family. It's a bit nuts, like, and then, you know, to contrast that with the vast expanse of a galaxy, and I guess you could make an argument that it's kind of a neat contrast that, like, it's set in this, like, giant expanse of this galaxy, and then all we're going to do is focus on this one tiny family forever. I guess you could maybe make that argument, but it just feels jarring to me. Yeah,
no, I would agree with that.
So yeah, that was Rex Jensen on Star Wars intertextuality as a problem with the new Star Wars things, and yeah, I'm with you, Bill. I would agree with that. Now, final thing. This isn't really follow up, but, like, we're going to put it at the start of the show because we're going to review Dune later on, so we should talk about it now. Is Bank of Artifexia, the triumphant return? Good capitalism, they called it. We have a letter, ASMR, from you / I can't. This person gave me the IPA for this, Bill, but, like, it's so difficult to pronounce. I think it's you / Zer on. Something like that. Zero on. It's weird. So I'm going to refer to this person as Zer, if that's okay, because I can't do the thing. So Zer is I believe Zer is German, because they write most of this letter in German. I apologize if you are in fact Austrian. Sorry about that. This
or Swiss
or anywhere where German is spoken. I think is there a big German speaking contingent in is it Uganda? Wasn't Uganda a former colony?
There's a few places where Namibia was, I think. Kenya was. Wow. Think so, until the First World War.
Wow. So if you are Namibian there, I'm really sorry. And you just speak German. Now I want to do something a little bit different this month, Bill, if that's okay with you.
Sorry, I was wrong. It wasn't. It was modern Tanzania. Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania.
And not Uganda. I thought Uganda was.
Maybe it was as well, but this is not the bit I was thinking of.
Is the Uganda... Hold on. Uganda flag... Sure, the Ugandan flag is all Germanic because of that, as far as I know. Like, if you look at the Ugandan flag, it's basically the German flag.
Fair enough, yeah. I trust you.
Okay, I'll follow up on that next month if I'm just completely off base with that. Okay, so I want to do something a little bit different today, Bill. I want you to open up the link in the show notes.
Okay,
to the money section. Everyone, this will be chapter art, and this will be on the YouTube video for everyone to see. I want you to have a guess at what's going on here. So I want you to attempt to identify the banknotes, if that's okay. So some of them are obviously going to be really hard, but let's see if you get any. So we'll go top left first. The 200 something note. What do you think that might be?
Czech.
Yes, that's 200 Czech korun, I believe, or crowns. Zer says. Okay, what's the one below it?
Odna grivnia. Okay. It's Ukrainian.
Yes. Oh, how did you get that?
I read it.
Oh, okay, I see. I can't read. I can't read Cyrillic.
No, because I was thinking, it has like a letter that looks just like I, which isn't in Russian. So I was thinking, okay, well, it's probably something former Soviet, and that guy looks like he might be kind of some sort of steppe warrior. But then in the top left it says National Bank Ukraine.
And the
I mean, I'm guessing that's the sounds are roughly similar to something like that, so I'm guessing it's how it translates.
You are correct. It is indeed. It's one Ukrainian. Oh, I can't even begin to read what Sarah's written there. Hryanya, maybe. And the colours obviously give it away as well because it's got the Ukrainian flag.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Of course. So that's that. Now the one below that. This 10 something rudder. What do you think that is?
Croatian.
That is, let me just double check, from Croatia. Where does it say Croatia on the note?
Hrvatska.
Oh, is that like the Croatian name for Croatia?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, very interesting. Okay, cool. And then the next three, these are obviously a little bit different.
Okay.
So what's it, the top right one? The 10 something rudder with the dude on it, holding out what appears to be bricks. Okay.
So, is this pre-20th century?
It is not pre-20th century.
Okay. So my guess is that it's either some kind of local currency, like just one city. That's my main guess. My second guess is that it's some kind of company script. But I'm going to go with that it's something from a specific city because it says Stadtlage at the bottom.
It says Stadtlage.
So it's a local currency to some town or city.
So it says Stadtlage. Do you have any idea what the E and the next two glyphs after the word Laga at the bottom? What the hell are they? There's an E.
So it's an I and an L.
Is that an L?
Well, it looks very similar to the one in Laga.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, yeah, of course. What the hell would I.L mean? I don't know. So I think you are correct. Zer writes here, Fort, we have 10 Pfennig. So it's German.
Okay.
From the town of Laga, brackets Lippe in Germany. It has nearly 35,000 inhabitants and is situated in the modern state of Nordrhein-Westfalen. It has quite some brick industry back when this Notgeld was issued. So Notgeld being like, I'm assuming that means like paper money. I think, or something like a note money, I think. So that the interesting thing there, so this is, I'm assuming, local currency. The interesting thing here is that I don't know where Laga is, but Laga is apparently on the Lippe, which is a river, and the Lippe runs really close to where my family comes from in Germany, in Nordrhein-Westfalen.
Nice.
So for any Germans, I think the nearest big town to where we live is Lünen, and I believe Lünen is on the Lippe, which is in and around Dortmund, and it's in Nordrhein-Westfalen.
That's what I thought.
I was like, oh, that's cool. From like my neck of the woods, my family's neck of the woods, should we say? Okay, then we have money number 5. What is this? Where is it from?
Okay. 25 Pfennig.
Pfennig. You gotta get that Pferd.
Yeah, Pfennig.
It's such an ugly sound. I hate it.
I really like it.
Oh, it's awful.
Amst Carlo zu Osterholz. Bremen.
Bremen? Where did you see Bremen?
The bottom right.
Bottom right. I see der Dortland.
No, below that, outside the border. Druck in Kastersumling Bremen. So that means printed in
Druck.
Printed in Bremen.
Druck is to print. Yeah. So this is it is 25 Pfennig. So that's 25 Pfennig, which is like old German
Pennies or cents.
pennies. Yeah. Pre-euro cents. And it is from Osterholz, which is today part of Osterholz Schambede. I can't read the writing. In Lower Saxony, it has 30,000 inhabitants, and there's text on the back that says a thing that I'm going to say to you, Bill, and I want to see if you can translate it. Yeah?
Okay, langsam bitte.
Langsam bitte. Now, this is written in this mad, what I'm going to say is Nazi font. I'm sorry, but that's the only way I know that script. So some of these consonants I just can't read. So I'm just going
Gothic type or Germanic type,
something like that. But loads of these consonants are just like mad in my eyes, and I can't really read it. So if I mispronounce this, I'm sorry. But here is what I think it says: Durch Sparsamkeit or Sparsamkeit geht's auch in schlechter Zeit.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to write that out.
So durch Sparsamkeit.
Yeah.
Geht auch in schlechter Zeit.
So something about through
something,
also bad times.
Gehst auch in
schlechter Zeit.
Do you know what the word Spa is?
Oh, I was thinking of spas as in fun. Nee, was bedeutet Spa?
So we have a shop here called Spar, and that comes from the German. That means to save.
To save?
To save. Yeah, as in to save money. Man kann Geld sparen.
Oh, okay, so it's like something about saving money for difficult times.
Yeah, perfect. So durch Sparsamkeit geht's auch in schlechter Zeit means something to the effect of through the savings. You can also go in bad times. So true saving goes also in bad times. And what does Zaire say is the exact translation? They just say that there's the text on the back that advises you to be thrifty. So don't give it an exact thing. So that's that. And then the final one. What is this, Bill? Where is it from? What do you think it is?
Well, this is from somewhere else on the Lippe. Because it says Lippe Detmold. Is Detmold the place it's from?
I'm going to...
An der wunderschöne Stadt, darinnen ein Soldat. So, a wonderful city with a soldier in it.
Yeah, a wonderful city, in it, a soldier.
Yeah.
And Zer mentions that, and this reminded me of your work, Bill. Zer mentions that they dislike this because of kind of like the militaristic undertones and like, you know, it's a beautiful city because hard men inhabit it, hard men that will fight for the nation, brrr, that sort of nonsense. And this, like, I looked at this and it was kind of like, this could be straight out of Ikern, like straight out of Ikern. They mentioned this is 50 Pfennig from Detmold, a city of 75,000 people, also on the Lippe. A beautiful city there in the soldier, and they go on to say that they hate the militarism aspect of it. These were issued, all three of these bills, Notgelds, were issued between 1919 and 1922 to deal with the shortage of coins after the war. These I think are quite valuable. He got them from his great uncle, Jus, maybe. Is that how that's pronounced? And these are duplicates that he got from that Zaire got from his great uncle. So I actually think these would be worth something, like a lot.
Wow.
Which is mental. So thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that they're duplicates and you didn't just give me originals because that'd be terrible. Please don't do that. So that's pretty cool.
And so these were these obviously duplicates of paper money, of notes. Oh yeah, because you said note geld.
No, in the sense that like Zer got a wad of cash from his great uncle, and he sent me the duplicates from that stack.
Yeah. But like it's like the original is notes as well. I mean,
Obviously. So the idea being that the metal was scarce or whatever, and they were just like, here, take some money. It's fine. Take some paper.
Yeah, I've never heard of notes for such small denominations before. I mean, I don't know what Saint Pfennig would buy you in 1919, but I'm guessing it still wouldn't be like a lot.
Yeah, I doubt you're buying a Mercedes with Saint Pfennig. Yeah, but again, I mean, if all the metal has been used up to make bullets, then what are you going to do? I'm just going to rely on some paper money. What else there's a bit of that. Zer doesn't have anything particular to ask, but I'll pick out a few choice quotes here. He thanks us for bringing the YouTube world building community together. Auf Deutsch as well. So vielen Dank, dass ihr die Persönlichkeiten der YouTube Worldbuilding Szene so zusammenbringt. He also says, das beste Artifexien Video ist auch immer noch die Kooperation mit Sidaf. It's good to know that I peaked about 5 years ago.
Und welches ist den besten Podcast-Episode?
Well, at the bottom, and I might actually send you a bit after recording, Zer has drawn a little cartoon.
Okay.
And there's two blokes here talking. One says, okay, what's the funniest moment of your life? The other bloke thinks to himself, and there is a picture of that bloke sitting in front of a computer with the Artifexian podcast logo on it and the words Betamax Crinkle Dash emanating from the computer. It lives on. Woo!
Wow. That's a pretty high honor.
It's really great. I'll send you the picture of the cartoon. Man, like it's that Betamax Crinkle Dash bit. That really was the funniest thing. That and Mitch's YouTube survey question from the pub quiz is just golden. So anyhow, thank you, Zer, for the Czech money. That is new money. That's awesome. That'll go into the bank map. Thank you for the Ukrainian money. I don't know if that's new money. I haven't got the map open. I think it might be. And thank you for the creation. I think the creation is new money, so that's awesome. And then a special thanks for the note geld. That is awesome. And like again, the thing that I never realized once embarking upon this coin or this money collecting venture is that, again, I was figuring I'd just get a bunch of notes from the countries as they exist in modern times. I'd never imagined that people would send me like old money from places and times that don't exist, or like fake money and like local currencies. And it's made me appreciate just how like really kind of wide and diverse and interesting the world of collecting coins and money is. It's not just like I went to Spain, I picked up some a euro with a Spanish symbol on the back, yay. It's kind of like it's this mad sort of like trip through history every time we do this. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, sir. Stand up for Zer.
Yeah.
Woo! As is tradition, world building is about to commence. Bill gives the summary and then launch into it.
So it is somewhat the same as things I've written before, but it's a little different. It is an in-universe document. Mm-hmm. But instead of it being a letter, it's a legal statement.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. And it is responding to some ideas raised by you, and I think in the live chat of the last episode.
Oh, we're getting to civil war. Cool.
Being the sworn testimony and bonded oath of Lieutenant Yar Teyartlen concerning the late events aboard the patrol vessel Nomad. The details of my training and commission in the company are a matter of record, both public and within the archives of the military commission. Fearing no dishonour or contradiction, I shall nonetheless present here an account of my history and service in the fleet. Having been joined up in Mircea as a probationary officer, I served with distinction upon the Aspire, where I gained extensive experience in the finer points of command, gunnery, navigation, and vessel tactics. During this cadetship, I partook in the Battle of Selin Lake, numerous smaller engagements and prize-takings, and myself was given command of a prize when the smuggler craft Senan was taken in the Transocean region. Upon completing this probationary period and receiving full lieutenancy, I was employed in logistical and administrative affairs in Usun Province Depot. My qualities having been proved with distinction, I, 2 seasons past, received commission, being assigned commander to the patrol vessel Nomad. On the evening preceding the events in question, I had retired to my cabin following the crew's practice of nighttime gunnery, as is my custom. Vishta, the Nomad's weird, had the night command, with mate Bashin due to relieve her at dawn. I spent some time engaged in administrative affairs before taking to my cot. At the time of my sleeping, there had been no alarm raised. I was roused by a pounding at my cabin door. Noticing that it was still dark without, I believed an engagement was imminent. Opening the door, I was immediately set upon by Everich, chief of the lower battery. Striking me upon the head with a work hammer, he then forced me back half-dazed into my cot. Everich and 2 further conspirators, Sinem and Ferdi, members of Everich's crew, bound me fast and gagged me with ropes. It was apparent from the stench of brandy upon their breath that they were thoroughly drunk. Having secured me, they set about ransacking the cabin, in the process destroying the ship's logs and account books, and thieving both cash and promissory notes from my personal funds, several of which had been due to creditors in the depot and elsewhere. Recovering my senses quickly from my assault, I was able to perceive the disposition of the crew and the progress of the mutiny as I was transported roughly to the brig. As I understand, this is what took place. Weird Vishta was lured to the Devint on false pretenses, where she was struck unconscious by the Devint crew. This happened at the same time as my attack. On the upper observation deck, a mutineer, I believe it to have been Leov, assaulted the lookout, a fellow common aviator who had not been seduced to mutiny. This struggle was spotted by the duty marine, who raised the alarm as I was taken to the brig. A detachment of mutineers was set to guard the door of mate Bashin's cabin, awaiting his arousal at any commotion. He woke to the marine's alarm, and when he emerged, they attacked him with hammers. In his defense, he slashed one, the cook, Koven, and wounded him mortally, whereupon his comrades became enraged and killed him, rather than merely subduing him as they had the other officers. The Marines' quarters were set upon by the mutineers, those 8 or so not engaged in other acts. The Marines fought a respectable action to the brig to release myself and the still insensate Weird. However, the cramped conditions of the vessel and the superiority in numbers of the insurrectionists proved the advantage, and 3 were wounded, 2 mortally. The remaining pair surrendered and were stripped of weapon and uniform and placed into the brig alongside me. In total, I believe perhaps 12 or 15 of the 48 souls I had aboard were committed mutineers. The 5 Marines and 3 officers were, of course, the chief resistance to insurrection, along with a handful of loyal common aviators. The remaining majority of the crew bear no guilt in the mutiny, saving that of failing to oppose agitation and dissent among their ranks, or to report it to superior officers. The following day, the mutineers, having established control of the vessel and through violence cowed the majority of the crew into accepting their illegal authority, held elections to establish command of the Nomad, and a sham trial in which Vishta and I were accused of all manner of outrages. These ranged from the dishonest, brutality of discipline, false accounting, withholding of pay, to the outright fantastical, that is, membership of a conspiracy against all groundsfolk, not allowing for the relatively modest circumstances of my own birth. Opinion was divided as to whether we should be executed or stranded. The mutineers in their bloodthirst pressed for execution, but the more moderate voices among the crew overcame them, and thus we were stranded upon the hills, where we spent 4 nights awaiting a passing vessel that would respond to our signal fire. This vessel, the Eltini trader Veil Ada, transported us directly to their nearest depot. There, I was granted a rapid transport to Usin Province Depot, where I am composing this account. It is my belief that this mutiny was not a spontaneous outburst of violence. It is clear that this was a planned insurrection against company authority, fomented by agitators and agents working in our midst. The following facts lead me to this conclusion. The attack took place when the Weird had the night command, and she was attacked first, thus preventing her from alerting the fleet. Secondly, the attacks upon the Weird, myself, and the upper deck lookout occurred near simultaneously, suggesting a highly planned action. The mutineers' drunkenness was a buttress to their assault, not its foundation. Thirdly, the attack took place at the midpoint of the patrol, at a distance far removed from the depot, allowing the mutineers more time to escape ahead of pursuit. Finally, there was no whisper of dissent or dissatisfaction among the ranks during the patrol, leading me to believe this was planned on the ground, in concert with agitators and conspirators of the general malice plaguing the Abeski cities and companies at this time.
Oh yeah, Yarte Yarden gets ousted. I like it.
His uppance has come.
His uppance has come. I like that. That was good. You're right. It is quite long, but it read really well. Time flew.
Good.
So I think we should keep the entirety of that in.
Okay.
I would have no problem with that at all. So can you give us just a quick rundown on the Nomad's backstory a little bit? This is the patrol vessel that Yarte Yarden is in control of, or was in control of.
Yes. So, the last two things we heard from Yar were that he had gotten a promotion, that he was appointed as commander of this patrol vessel, the Nomad. And then after that, he wrote some details of his first engagement as commander.
They were chasing some sort of bandit ship, weren't they?
Yeah, they were chasing. I think they described them as free traders or smugglers or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of where Yar has been at. Enjoying now. You can see from this he's been in it for 2 seasons, so he's been at it a little while at this stage.
Can we define seasons? Is a season a climactic thing or a societal thing?
Oh, that is a good question. Let's say a social one.
That's a social one. Okay, great.
Yeah. But okay. Let's say it's about like 6 months ish.
Cool. All right, cool. And then a recap again. What is a weird and what does it do?
It's an officer position on a vessel, and they do communication and other weirder stuff.
We talked about this before. Do they do like occult stuff?
Sorta, yeah.
Sorta. You've never explored that, I don't think.
Not closely, no.
No, that'd be interesting. Okay. So then Yar's doing his stuff, and then there's a mutiny on the ship, and he gets taken in, and people are killed, and that's great and all. And then the mutineers had, and this is a quote, held elections to establish command of Nomad, and a sham trial in which Vishta and I were accused of all manner of outrages. So, the question on the elections, would this strike Yar as being really strange? Like, is a ship's captain an elected position ordinarily under a Abeski culture? Yeah, and if not, would Yar be looking at it and being like, what are these barbarians doing, having an election? What's the crack there?
It might happen in outside companies, like, okay. Or, in kind of smaller endeavors, like not one of the big C companies, but like, if a bunch of people found a small trading interest together and outfit a trading ship, they might elect positions, yeah. But it would be very contrary to the idea of military and commercial discipline that the companies would follow.
Okay, so Yar is probably looking at this being like, what in the hell are they doing?
I mean, he's familiar with the idea, but it's totally out of context, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm assuming the things that they were accused of, the brutality of discipline, false accounting, withholding of pay, conspiracy against all groundsfolk, etc. I'll talk about that bit in a second. I'm assuming those actually occurred, and they aren't outrageous claims. They are accurate.
I mean, what do you reckon, knowing what we know about Yar?
Well, I mean, the brutality of discipline, I guess, I think that fits the bill with an Abeski man of position in the Navy. What do we call this? Like, what do we call fleet? In the fleet, yeah. False accounting and withholding of pay. Possibly, false accounting seems a bit like white collar. Do you know what I mean? I can't see him doing that. I can see him being a dick and treating people poorly, but I can't really see him fudging the ledgers. The conspiracy against all ground folks, I think, yeah, were I Yar, I would say, of course I don't have a conspiracy against all ground folks. I have no issue with them, but like in practice, there is a big giant conspiracy against all grounds folks, because that's what kind of colonial endeavours are, per se. So he may not personally feel that way, but he's definitely involved in it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was kind of aiming for there. Like, he lacks the sort of analysis to be able to see it as such. It's not like he's explicitly a member of a secret society that is intent on oppression. And, you know, to be fair, it may be an overstatement of the case on the part of the mutineers.
Sure.
But it is essentially, he is a member of the propertied class.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least a tool of theirs.
So I'm going to take back the false accounting withholding pay for a second there. I could totally see him actually just not paying his workers very well and being like, you didn't work enough. I'm not paying you. You only get paid when you do X, Y, and Z. And I guess false accounting kind of like it falls out of that, where he needs to fudge the ledgers to make it known that he did pay people when he didn't, etc. So yeah, actually, the whole thing I could see him doing.
I would actually reverse the likelihood on those. I would say those are more likely than the brutality of discipline. We know that he's believed to be dishonest at cards.
Yeah. I mean, I would never have pegged Yar himself to be a brutal man in the sense of interpersonal violence, but I would totally peg him as be like, here, henchman, go beat this guy up. Like, one doesn't have to engage in interpersonal violence to be like a harsh dictator on this ship. I don't think. I love that bit that you say, like, membership of the conspiracy against all groundsfolk, not allowing for the relatively modest circumstances of my own birth. There's so much in that, right? Like, first of all, relatively modest is like a very fudgy term, right? Like, you can see, like, anyone of any socioeconomic upbringing can go, I grew up in a relatively modest sort of circumstance. That's one of those things that people say to kind of like hide what's actually going on, do you know? So it's a real wishy-washy term. And the other thing is, this line strikes me a bit like, I can't be racist, I have black friends. Or it's like, how can there be a conspiracy against ground folks? I am a ground folk. It's like, well, that doesn't make any difference, pal. You could hate your own kind. That's fine.
Yeah. That's pretty close to kind of what I was thinking. It was that, and also like a wealthy person who says, well, I worked for everything that I have, when they actually came from wealth.
Yeah, man, just a really quick tangent on that. Do you know the YouTube channel Jubilee?
I do not.
So they're like this YouTube channel, and their shtick is oh god, how do you actually define their shtick? They have a whole bunch of formats, but one of the formats is where they get a whole bunch of people who have something in common, and they ask them questions, and they have to rate on a scale of like 1 to 5 how much they agree or disagree with the question. And so one of the episodes I watched many months ago, possibly years ago.
And there's multiple people per video.
Multiple people per video.
Right, yeah, gotcha.
And one of the ones I watched was on millionaires. And they asked them a bunch of questions. And like one of them was like, do you consider yourself lucky? Or something like that. And then it was really fascinating watching all the rich people like, and they have to spatially align themselves. So like if you strongly agree, you move all the way to the right. And if you strongly disagree, you move all the way to the left. So you can get to like spatially see how these people think. And I'm continually blown away with people who are well off, like who are not poor, just completely dismissing the luck side of it. And like I almost get the impression that if you go like, oh, you're wealthy because you're extremely lucky, they almost think that that's kind of like a bit of an insult or a put down. And they go, no, there's no luck in it. I worked really hard for it. But I'm like, you can have both. Like, you can be extremely lucky and then you've capitalized through hard work on that luck. Like, both of these things can exist. I find it really weird.
You worked hard and, didn't have a serious illness at critical points in that process. And and like it's just mad watching people be like, how can you tell me I'm lucky? I founded a company from scratch, etc., and did all this. And I'm like, of course you're lucky. Like everyone, like the fact that you're here is lucky. You weren't hit by a car. Like everyone's lucky. You just capitalized on the luck. And I just find it really obtuse when people who are wealthy just downplay the luck element. Just accept both. Like both are okay. They're totally cool. Yeah, be lucky and capitalize and work hard. That's it. Not mutually contradictory.
Exactly. But they always treat it as mutually contradictory, and it blows my mind. Anyhow, so I love that line. Not allowing for the relative circumstances of my own birth. And also, I don't know how like groundsfolk speak, but that seems really like a hoity-toity like language.
In fairness to him, he was from, like, he had been an apprentice in some kind of trade before, or some kind of labour before he signed on.
He's become nouveau riche.
He'd be like kind of working middle class who has kind of ascended quite well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, again, I don't know if it's the case, but the language used, maybe it's because it's a legal document, it has to be kind of like prim and proper, but the language strikes me as a person who maybe has forgot where they came from. Not allowing for the relatively modest circumstances of my own birth. It just seems just like a really OTT way of putting that. Anyway, so that's that. I love that middle section, man. I think this middle section is absolutely awesome. Fair play. What the vessel that picked them up, the Altini. We haven't seen them before. We don't know what the Altini are. Who are these people?
I think I've mentioned them in passing anyway. So the Altini company is just another Abeski company.
Oh, sorry. I thought they were like a people's.
No.
They're Altini traders. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So they're like something along the lines of the Tamar company.
Yeah. Cool. And so at the end then, when Yar sums it up and gives his conclusion about why he thinks this was a coordinated attack, he says the attack took place on a night where the Weird had the night command and she was attacked first, thus preventing her from alerting the fleet. Do I read into that like subtle undertones of like, were I in command that night, such a thing would not have happened. But the Weird was. And look where we are now, lads.
Oh, I guess you could be saying that. I hadn't thought of that angle. But yeah, that is definitely in there.
Death to the author.
What I had been aiming for there, was like the Weird has responsibility over communication and stuff, and could have at a distance alerted other vessels or alerted like the depot that a mutiny was taking place. So they had to take her out like as one of the first blows to stop that happening. Take over the radio station on the cruiser so that they can't radio back that there's been a mutiny.
Take over the radio station and just play the Artifexia podcast on loop.
Just play the Artifexia podcast constantly. Yeah.
That's it.
No ads. No music. Just Artifexian.
Man, you've got such a great voice for radio. It's ridiculous. Like I really don't, but I just like you got such a deep voice. Like radio and deep voice just work together. Like, oh,
Bill, you've got such a good voice for radio, so deep. And then I just started giggling.
yeah. Sometimes when I'm a little bit bored, if I'm bored during the editing process, I will just mess with the EQ of your voice and just to see how low I can bring it, and it's brilliant. Like it's just. It's like this earth-shattering rumble if you just like boost up all the bass. Like,
Should definitely have that as an extra on our first physical release.
Oh well, April Fool's Day is coming out, so
true.
we might be able to do like Bill plus 20 decibels of bass. Be great crack. Anyway, on the communications thing, right? So this is the thing that I realized when reading this. How do people communicate? Because we only know of communication via letters through your writings, and I don't think we've talked about how long distance communication works. Like, do they have like wireless technologies? How are they communicating?
For the most part, no. But the weirds have some limited ability to send short messages or signals over distances
via.
That is what they do.
Oh, okay. So that's part of their occult stuff.
Yeah.
Are we talking telepathy sort of stuff?
Not as overt as that. No.
But it's not like mechanical communication.
I haven't decided.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. And outside of the ships, like how do people? I'm assuming groundsfolk and stuff. They communicate primarily just through letter writing. A long distance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
absolutely.
Okay, right, grand.
Like I mean, bear in mind, like we've seen letters go between like executives within companies and people of very high status, and they are still sending letters.
Yeah.
And it was a priority for the Tamar company to have like what was it, a 7-day turnaround between one of the cities and the Hoitan depot, which is like very far away. So letters are still like infrastructurally extremely important. Physically carrying messages is still extremely important.
I guess because you said that the weirds can send messages, short messages, over some distance, I guess this kind of makes moot what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. But it occurs to me, if the weirds are communicating via this non-mechanical means, we'll call it, does that kind of do a little bit of world-breaking stuff here? Because like, surely weirds don't just exist on ships. Like do grounds people have this weirding ability? And if so, I'm beginning to imagine a society where like every small town has its one weird, and those weirds are able to communicate with each other over distance with each other, and like you have like essentially like a village shaman type person that acts a bit like a post office. Have you thought about this or considered this at all, or am I completely off base? Is this world breaking?
I don't think it's world breaking. No, I haven't put enough time into figuring out what it is precisely that the weirds are doing to answer that yet. But yeah, no, it's definitely that there is a potential thread to follow there. I mean, I guess just quickly off the top of my head, if I had to justify the disparity there, I would say, well, maybe it requires some kind of specialist training or equipment that isn't easily accessible, but that companies can provide.
Yeah, but I mean, but then you can get to the point where you say like retired weirds who no longer want to be out there performing military duties or return back to their villages, and then they would then perform that role anyways. So instead of having just general shaman postmen, you just have old shaman postmen.
Yeah.
Do you know? I wonder, is this, again, I appreciate you said that you haven't looked into this yet, but just musings between the two of us. Is the weird stuff, are you envisaging this as being sort of an innate ability that all people in this world have, and it just requires training to come out? Or would you envisage it as like it's a gift, like being musical, for example? Only a small subset of people in the, not musical, well, loves people musical, but like, I don't know, artistic or ability to draw, only a small subset of people have this ability. Are you envisaging the same thing with the weirds? Only a small subset of people have this and have the potential to go on and become weirds.
I hadn't thought about it much, but I probably would have leaned more towards the latter, yeah.
That's interesting. So then you can end up with like systems of kind of like weirding apprenticeships where you go to weird school and you get to like, man, this is getting very fantasy very fast. But I guess planetary romance, you wanted that. You have like Beni traveling. Yeah, and then you've mentioned like mythical monsters. Wait, no, hang on. Were the monsters in this world? Like not on this planet, but in this universe.
They are in this planet.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of fits. Like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Why this angle at all? Like, why didn't you just go, oh, we need a communications officer, and they have like a wireless and done?
Because that would break the thing a little bit too much, I think, to have just, there's radios. I think that would be it would kind of take away a lot of the conceit of the writing, is that I am writing letters between people.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's fair. How did they do, back in Napoleonic like naval times or whatever, how did ships communicate to each other? Or how did people get messages to ships out in the open sea?
Post. Yeah, but like physical letters.
Wow.
Yeah.
How the hell are you meant to find... Wait, sorry, again, apologies, Artifexian, I know nothing about how naval culture works. But if you have a ship, right, like I have a French ship, right, and I'm sailing across the Atlantic to go assault some Native Americans, right? And I'm in the middle of the Atlantic, and someone wants to send me post. How in the hell are people going to find me? Because even if I give them the like trajectory of where I want to go, and plot it and be like, in May I'll be at these coordinates, that's so kind of random because like, storms could come, we could be blown off course, etc. Like surely post just never arrived at any of these ships with any degree of reliability.
I understand that it was unreliable, yeah. But you can make, from what I understand from, I guess I'm reading historical fiction, so don't take this as gospel. But from what I understand, you can make reasonably good approximations of where people will be based on like currents and what a sensible route to take would be.
Wow.
And then you would also send multiple copies, very likely.
Wow.
But yeah, it is still unreliable. And like you would accept that you're probably not going to be able to catch up to someone. Maybe you'll catch them on the way back, or you'll give it to another ship that's going in that direction, or you'll leave it at at what I keep calling depots in Icairn. I can't remember what the word I'm looking for in the real world is. But you'd leave them like somewhere where they might stop to rewater or to refuel or.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So you might have like, one of the Caribbean islands or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
Be a place where you dump a load of post. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
but I mean, like, it's a curious thing that a war could be over, or like it could be declared finished, and it could still be fought for months because if you're engaging French privateers in the Pacific, like who's going to tell you that the peace has been signed in Paris?
I mean, that's one of the mind-blowing things about the Second World War. I read or I listened to Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, great podcast. Apparently real historians think it's pretty, not as academic as it purports to be, but I find it really fun. Go check it out. Links in show notes. But he has a series on, it's called Supernova in the East, and it's basically tracking World War II, the Pacific theater of war. And the powers there and how all the interplay, and it's really fun. And he opens it up by telling the story of a guy called Hiro Onoda. Do you know this chap?
Not specifically, but I've a pretty good idea where this is going.
So he was, I'm going to get the dates wrong, but he was a Japanese soldier fighting in World War II Is it World War II? Yeah, it's World War II. Yeah, it's World War II. Yeah, of course, because supernova in the East is a reference to the atomic bomb. So, yeah, he's fighting World War II, and Carlin paints his image of Japanese military culture at the time of being kind of like they have a divine right to rule, and because of that, there's no way that they won't rule and they won't win everything because God intended it, that sort of crack. So it was kind of inconceivable for soldiers at the time to accept a Japanese surrender. And so this led to this really weird phenomenon where there was a bunch of Japanese soldiers who, like literal decades after the war had finished and hostilities had ceased, that they were still in like the jungles of various Pacific islands and nations, still killing locals because it was just inconceivable for them to understand that the war is over. And this particular chap, Hiro Onoda, he had to get... The Japanese government had to get his old military commander, who now was like doing civilian life as a shoemaker or whatever, and like had to get him at great expense, fly him into wherever Hiro Onoda was, and to have him honorably discharge Hinoda, because no amount of interaction with anyone would convince this chap that Japan was defeated and surrendered. And this was like I think it's the 70s. When this guy was still out there as an old man, just like murdering people, because it was like, I don't accept that the war is over. And that's it. And it's just like, what even is this? That's nuts. So that reminded me of like the idea of like not receiving post, not knowing the war is over. Even in modern times, or slightly pre-modern times, people didn't understand, didn't hear about it, didn't know about it, and they just kept fighting. And that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely
yeah, there's. I think there was quite a lot of instances of that. Like there's maybe a dozen or so recorded things of Imperial Japanese holdouts.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Absolutely mad. Like I really mean to read that guy's book. He wrote a book, Hiro Onoda.
Oh, cool.
I'd love to at some stage read that and just to get into that mindset, because that must be what a mad world to live in. Like to be at war for like. You know, like if my dates are correct, like for over 30 years, like nuts, absolutely nuts. Anywho, that's all my points. That was my last point. I wanted to know about how communications are done. Have you got any points? Anything I missed? Anything you want to clarify? Yeah, go for it.
It is now a matter of legal record that Yar absolutely intended to pay his debts, but those mutineers stole the money that he was putting aside.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Oh, snaky man. What's going to happen legally to him? Like, why is he in legal bother for letting his ship be taken away from him? Or is this just standard protocol? Like, every time something happens, you have to give a debrief?
No, this isn't like him being on trial as such. That may still happen, pending the outcome of, initial investigations and recovering the Nomad, etc. But no, this isn't his defense. It's just kind of his deposition more so. But I mean, like if we look at it historically, so the probably the most famous mutiny, or one of the most famous mutinies in history, is the Mutiny on the Bounty.
I don't know it.
Which was 1780 something, 1780. No, it wouldn't be as late as 1789. Let me check. Mutiny on the Bounty was. Oh no, it was 89. I was right.
Oh.
Nailed it. 1789. And actually, I based I read Lieutenant Bly's account of the mutiny. To kind of give me some ideas for how I'd structure this. And Lieutenant Bly went on to become a vice admiral. Like he was the commander. He was the commander of the Bounty, and it was like this really famous thing. He lost control of the vessel, and he navigated like thousands of miles in a small open boat with some of his kind of loyal officers and men. And eventually made it back to Great Britain, and then went out to recover the mutineers. So like it wasn't an end to his career. he became like very, very high up. I think he was like governor of Australia for a while.
Wow.
He did loads.
That's such a weird term, like governor of Australia.
So he was the governor of New South Wales, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because if I was like, governor of Australia sounds so weird because governor is kind of like, that implies very kind of small scale, and Australia is very big. So it's just like governor of Australia is such a weird term to think about. So yeah. But Yar here isn't, like he's not like traversing seas in an open rowboat. Like it's not, I don't know, it seems like his path is not one of upwards mobility at the moment.
He has not covered himself in glory.
No, he has not. Thank Christ. Douche.
And he's 2 seasons in, and he still hasn't, he's still on patrol duty. He hasn't gotten an independent cruise yet, which he's probably quite sore about.
Do you know, I wonder, this is probably a bit wishful thinking, but I wonder, like, given that we now know that Yar came from relatively modest, air quotes, beginnings, I wonder if there could be in his future he could turn. I said last show that he wouldn't turn, but now it occurs to me that if he keeps, not ascending in the companies and he keeps suffering misfortune, his like experience of the companies might sour a lot, and he might be like, I'm going to change sides here and get on what looks like to be the upward trajectory of this mutiny and all these hostilities. I don't know, part of me thinks there's a non-zero chance that we might get a Yar flip. Maybe there's a redemption arc where he returns to his roots and he becomes like a decent person, an honourable person, a brave soldier, that sort of thing, but for the other side. Don't know, but yeah.
Okay.
Who knows? Okay, world building, done. Excellent. Okay, right. Let's do some of my creative output.
Sure.
Vowel-Consonant Harmony. I made a video, finally. Have you watched this video? Have you got any thoughts? I have watched
this video.
Links in the show notes, all this, folks.
I have a question about a definitional issue.
Yes.
So you used the word contiguous in defining vowel-consonant harmony. Mm-hmm. So contiguous within the domain, so within the word or whatever. What does contiguous mean, and how is it separate from the fact that within the domain is already abound, and that transparency and obstruction are limits as well?
Oh, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, contiguous, I mean, the way I read it was just that, like, for the types of harmony that must be contiguous, like the harmonizing segments, the harmonizing sounds have to be right next to each other within the domain. And blockers and transparent units, they're just exceptions to that rule. Right.
Is that different to the examples you give late in the video of was it focal harmony?
Focal harmony, yeah.
Focal harmony, where it only applies to certain features. Is that the same thing as there being transparency? Just there's loads of transparent elements.
That's interesting. That was not discussed in the research, so I'm going to say tentatively no.
Okay.
But I guess you could kind of analyze it as being like everything that's not affected is in fact transparent to the harmony. I've just not seen that analysis of it like that. But then again, these things, I really couldn't find an awful lot of literature on these harmonies, because like vowel-consonant harmony is like, particularly the non-contiguous stuff, like it's like really rare. So it's not like I couldn't find like a big book on focal harmony and like, just 300 pages of information on it.
That means you got to write it, bud.
Yes, leave it to the non-linguist to write the book on focal harmony. But yeah, I think that might be a matter of interpretation. How you choose to analyze it, I think maybe.
Okay.
Don't shout at me, linguists, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, because it's I couldn't see a clear distinction between the two ideas, other than one is just like you've got more exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought about it like that, but that does kind of make sense. And yeah, again, ultimately, I don't know.
Okay.
And it wasn't addressed in the research.
Cool.
No. Any other points?
Sounds hard. Like both as a thing to learn in a language, it sounds really difficult, and it sounded like it was not a huge amount of resources on it for the purposes of making the video. And
yeah, I mean, I'm constantly running into this with these videos because I'm like, I want to do harmony. What types of harmony are there? There's these three. There is like one that's clearly the most cross-linguistically common in language, vowel harmony, right? It's everywhere. And then consonant harmony, a little bit less common, and then vowel-consonant harmony, like less common again. I always think to myself, like, should I just make a cutoff and just be like, I'm just going to talk about the vowel harmony, right? Because that's clearly the big player in this space, and forget everything else. But I keep going, no, I must be exhaustive. And then I end up in a situation where I'm looking at vowel-consonant harmony and there's like no literature on it. I'm like, oh, damn it. And it's also the thing that I find the most difficult about it, and one that I'm kind of reticent to ever really try a lot of these in conlangs, is that they're just so bloody hard to pronounce. Like pharyngeal harmony, like, is a nightmare, I think, or emphatic harmony, should I say, is a nightmare. The things that happen in Arabic. The retroflex harmony, like apparently retroflex vowels are in fact a thing according to the research, but like I don't know how to make a retroflex vowel. Like, you say a vowel, but you curl your tongue backwards in the mouth, I guess, but it just comes out sounding like mush. Like, it's just so difficult to pronounce. The only one that's kind of easy to both implement and pronounce and to deal with is nasal consonant harmony, vowel consonant harmony. That's the only one that's relatively easy, because like English speakers kind of have a sense of nasal vowels through contact with French, and then like nasals are nasals. Ma, na, na. They're, we have those. They're the most common sounds. So it's an easy one to do, but for the most part, vowel consonant harmony is a disaster in terms of implementation and pronunciation.
Yeah.
I would avoid it like the plague, really. If you're going to do it, do nasal harmony. The rest, just, it's okay. Don't worry about
it. Those were my questions.
Okay, cool. I have 3 points, all of which are going to be explored in a follow-up video as well, but, we're here discussing it. Here we go. The first point I want to point out is that we've done this before with other harmony videos, but I just want to stress again that harmony is like a process of like mass scale assimilation of sounds, right? Mm-hmm. Assimilation also happens on a very small scale, a local assimilation. And they're kind of like, it can be kind of confusing to people, because it's like, when is something just like local assimilation and when is something harmony? So I just want to stress again, like, there are a bucket of languages where a consonant alters a vowel next to it, or vice versa, right? This happens like all the time in language. Like in Korean, for example, like S goes to sh before E, right? So they don't say si, they say she.
Right.
Happens all the time, right? The question you need to ask yourself, like, you just don't jump straight to go to that and then go, oh, that is harmony, right? Because it's like, this is vowel consonant harmony because vowels are affecting consonants. That's local assimilation. The question to ask is, does this happen like systematically over large scale domains? So is it that like, oh, okay, so S is turning to sh before E, and then all other sounds in the word or the clause or the phrase or whatever are affected? If that's the case, then you're looking at a harmony system, because it's like this macro scale systematic assimilatory change, right? If that's not the case, and it's only like just, two sounds right next to one another changing, that's like local assimilation. And they're different beasts kind of altogether, despite being kind of related. So it's this real weird thing about what is and isn't harmony. So I just want to put it out there again, because lots of people are like, like Japanese does this. And I'm like, no, Japanese does assimilation like many other languages. It doesn't have systematic vowel consonant harmony, at least as far as I know. I'm pretty confident in that assertion.
Yeah. So it's like, if it happens like to an immediate neighbor, it's assimilation. If it happens within a domain, it's mutation.
I guess you could define a domain as being an immediate neighbor. Domain equals immediate neighbor.
Okay,
It's more just like large scale structures.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, not being a linguist, I don't know the answer to this. It's like, at what point do we class it a large scale structure? Like, what happens if the harmony affects, I don't know, like 3 syllables away from the trigger or whatever? is that a large-scale structure? I don't know if this actually occurs in that line, but it's just probably the question of like what is and isn't a large scale. Yeah, the point is it can be kind of tricky to spot, but in general, if like an entire word is morphing, you're going to look at harmony in general, and like not only one word, but like many words. So if many words, like if you're in Turkish, you write out a bunch of words, and they all appear to change. Like the whole scale of them changes, you're looking at harmony. And if it's only just like, oh, every time you have a S before an E, it goes to sh, that's like local assimilation. So just a thing to watch out for. It's not actually all that relevant in conlang because, like, you're just going to go into it doing what you're going to do, and then what you call it is up for future space linguists to like argue over. But it is kind of relevant if you're looking at like defining what real world languages are doing, I think.
Yeah.
So that's point one. Harmony versus assimilation. They're both assimilation. One is large scale, one is small scale. Watch out.
I have a question about assimilation.
Go for it, yes.
So, broad and slender vowels in Irish and the way they affect consonants, is that assimilation?
Yeah. I should know more about this. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it is.
Yeah, the only thing that's holding me back, again, I'm so sorry. I know we have listeners of this podcast who are like avid Celtic language fans, so I'm sorry if I say something stupid here. The only thing that's holding me back is, I wonder, is the broad and slender thing an orthographic mnemonic that we use as opposed to assimilation?
No, because the pronunciation is different.
Yeah, but like that pronunciation can just evolve to be what it is, and we
from orthography though.
No, not from orthography. No, like the pronunciation evolves as it evolves, and then we make this orthographic convention to be like, oh, if there's
sorry, yeah, I see what you mean.
If there's a slender vowel before this consonant, pronounce it as a slender consonant. So
I guess, yeah, because you can get C and you can get she in Irish, like both of those, they're just written differently. So yeah, I guess it isn't quite the same thing.
So well, the point is, I don't know where it came from. I don't know the diachronic aspect of it, with the broad and slender sort of stuff. So I would need to look into that to say for sure. But certainly something like that can be a process of assimilation. All right, and what was the other thing I was going to say on that? Oh yeah. So the other thing I want to point out, a comment I got was about directionality, right? So in the video, I keep referring to stuff like, progressive harmony, left to right harmony does X, whereas regressive harmony, right to left harmony does Y, right? And a few commenters were like, this is really, the language you're using here is incorrect because different writing systems. So like right to left in Arabic script, how do I even say this? Yeah, right to left in the Arabic script means a different thing from right to left in our script, right? Because different writing directions. Just to be absolutely clear, I totally get the confusion here. I think the nomenclature is a bit bollocks, if I'm brutally honest, but this is what it is and what's in the various papers I was reading. Left and right here do not refer to writing directions. Left and right refer to like temporal directions, like left being the start of an utterance and right being the end of an utterance, and that's just kind of the convention we've set upon. That
is what is used in papers on this topic.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, in general, they'll use progressive and regressive.
Yeah,
and
that's much better.
If clarification is needed, they'll say left to right spread, or leftward spread, or rightward spread, and that's always is not in reference to the orthography. That's in reference to time. So like if you imagine a waveform just like filling out in front of you on like an audio recorder, left is the start of the utterance, right is the end of the utterance. That's the convention we go with.
Yeah.
Boom. And I appreciate
progressive and regressive is much, much better.
Yeah, but I guess you can still make the same argument. Like regressive means backwards, and then someone can would be like, yes, but that's different in relation to which way you write stuff. Do you know?
No, because it's backwards in time. And like you don't experience time backwards in different languages unless it's a rival.
Does the word regressive necessarily refer to time?
No, but like left to right can only refer to a visualization of time, whereas regressive and progressive can refer to time itself.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Yeah, that's fair. Progressive and regressive is, yeah, it is a bit more. Or maybe I should just stop using the left word, right word thing, because I always feel the need.
Get your stuff together, linguists. It's like, I mean, Jesus.
I mean,
Edgar's back is killing from having to carry the whole field.
Some of it is really bad. Like the one that I really hate, and it to this day it pisses me off, is the difference between indicative and subjunctive, and irrealis and realis. Right? Those are big fancy words, right? We have indicative, subjunctive, and realis, irrealis. Now, you'd think, because they have different fancy words, that they'd be totally different things. But for the most part, like 99% of the time, they are literally just the same thing. Indicative is realis, subjunctive is irrealis. And it just falls out of like different nomenclatures being used over the years to describe language in different parts of the world. And we've just stuck with it. And I hate it, and it makes no sense. They should either just all be called indicative or subjunctive, or all realis, irrealis. Don't use both. This is awful. But there you go. And I'm sure someone's going to be like, well, look, languages that are marked realis and irrealis do very particular things that languages that are marked indicative and subjunctive don't. I'm sure that's the case. But for the most part, they're basically the same thing. And most people just treat them as being the same things. So that's my rant all the way. Sorry. Last point is that apparently I pronounced the word Arabic wrong. Is this correct, Bill?
You pronounce it in a way that I certainly notice as unusual.
All right. How do you pronounce that word?
Arabic.
Arabic, not Arabic.
Yeah.
Huh. Where there's a country in the Middle East that has that word in its name. How would you pronounce that country?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. So I say Saudi Arabia as well.
Do I say it again?
Saudi Arabia.
Okay, I don't voice the S.
What? You go Saudi Arabia?
No, I say Saudi, whereas it sounded like you said Saudi.
Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia.
No, that sounds more like how I'd say it.
Saudi. Oh, maybe. I think this might be my Germanness coming. So Saudi Arabian. Yeah, okay, so it's Saudi Arabian. The emphasis on the Ra. So maybe that's where I'm getting Arabic from.
Very possibly.
Arabic. Yeah, because people were shouting at me a lot, and I was like, am I pronouncing it wrong? Arabic? 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 So yeah, apparently I pronounced it wrong. There you go. Must be my Germanness. We can add that to the long list of words that in English that I can't pronounce. See, where.
No, that's
which.
right.
Yeah, no, I'm pronouncing it the correct way now. But ordinarily I pronounce it wrong.
How do you ordinarily pronounce it?
Where, which.
Yeah, because people get mad at me for making anything out of the H, and they say that I say it funny. But like, no, there's a H there. You do, no, but I say it the way you changed it to.
So how do you? Yeah, I know, and that's wrong. How do you?
No, but you said it was right just a second ago.
No. I said I pronounced things wrong. See these words, and then I was going to list out the words that were pronounced correctly, so that people can watch me stumble through pronunciation of where and the.
Yeah, but that's the way I say where.
No, I think you're doing this deliberately.
I'm absolutely not. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand how you're contradicting me.
Okay, anyway, hold on. How do you say the word when you question someone? There's a WH word that you would use. How would you say that?
I mean, any of the WH words.
If I did something and you'd be like, blank, the hell did you do that?
Wherefore? Wherefore hast thou done this?
Three-letter WH word.
Why?
Yeah, so you go why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Oh, wow, that's nuts. Yeah,
it's not. It's totally normal.
I mean, yeah, but it's also totally normal to drop the H. To be fair.
So I do not have the wine merger. Actually, they write it the other way around. The wine merger.
So he's whining. I drink wine. Okay, yeah, I have that merger.
Yeah.
Man, it's just nuts that we live like geographically so close together and we just speak entirely different languages. Anyway, those are my points. Harmony versus assimilation. Watch out. Make sure you define things correctly. Directions, leftwards and rightwards are non-orthographic. They are in relation to time. And I say the word Arabic wrong. And I think it's because I'm half German and my English is awful. Those are my follow-ups from Vowel-Consonant Harmony. Anything else to add? Or should we head into the green room?
Have you ever considered doing a consonant mutation as a topic? Because it does happen in other languages than just the Celtic ones.
Yeah, I should, shouldn't I? I really should. I guess.
I mean, obviously the Celtic ones are my favourites for it to happen in, but
I guess. I think I might actually struggle to make a video of it.
Okay.
Because like it's a really shockingly simple thing. And unless I don't know enough about it. Like, does consonant mutation come in like different flavors? Like in the way vowel harmony comes in like 5 or 6 flavors. If consonant harmony came in like not consonant harmony, sorry, consonant mutation came in a bunch of different flavors, then maybe. But like the way Irish does it, you can explain that in like basically 2 sentences. Yeah, there were sounds at the end of words that created intervallic consonants across word boundaries that caused lenition. Those sounds were lost. That's basically it. And with a few examples, you're done. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take it on. I'll take it on consideration.
Okay.
Now, green room.
Let's go to the green room.
All right. So, green room. We are finally going to review Dune, the Frank Herbert novel from 65. I think it was 1965.
I don't know.
I think
Dune, published.
I think it's 65. He wrote it in
August 1965.
There you go. So from this point on, there is going to be massive spoilers for this, and there will be no extra content after this point. So we're literally just going to talk about Dune, and then we're going to say goodbye, and we're done. So you're not going to miss anything. So if you haven't read it or you haven't seen the movie or whatever, you can just dip out now. It's fine. Next time we review a book, we're going to review The Stone Sky, which is book 3 of the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. So that's all you need to know. If you don't want to know anything about Dune, stop now. I'll see you later. Have a good one. All right. For everyone else who stayed, let's talk about Dune. So usually, Bill, I ask you to do a bit of a summary. But like, I think that despite this book being horrifically dense and complex, I actually think this can be summed up in basically one sentence.
Okay.
Which is, dude goes to a desert planet, becomes like a shaman computer, and then rules the universe, is essentially the book.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's basically it. So we have this Duke's...
That's the barest bones plot outline. Yeah.
It is, yeah. What I will do for folks, though, is I'm going to throw a link in the show notes to Thug Notes, which is just great series on YouTube. They do a review of Dune in a really funny and novel way. Go check it out. But yeah, basically the shtick is that our main character is Paul Atreides of House Atreides. We're in this sort of like far future feudal universe where you have a ruling empire and like major houses. And Paul is a member of this House Atreides. They're given the fiefdom of this planet Arrakis, the desert planet. One of the resources on this planet is a thing called spice, which is a drug that basically all the society needs. Like everything runs on this drug. And yeah, so Paul and his family go to this planet. Paul becomes this like mystic shaman, religious figure, computing god creature thing whilst on the planet. He befriends the natives of the planet and kind of creates this like army or whatever. And by the end of the book, he's seated on the throne and is emperor of the galaxy. There's nuances in the middle, but that's basically the summary, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What did you think of the book?
So I read this before, probably when I was a teenager. And I remember more or less enjoying it, but with some reservations. And this time around, I got more out of it, and I had a few more reservations as well, though. So I can't decide if I like the book or not.
Interesting. Huh. Okay.
There's elements of it that I really, really like. but there's certain just kind of like literary things that I don't like about it.
Interesting. Okay, have you got like a chronological list of notes taken?
Not necessarily chronological, but I do have some notes.
Okay, well, I have a kind of roughly chronological list of things that stood out to me. So how about I go through them, and then at any point when you're like, oh, that occurred in this section, just jump in.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So my first comment is that the start of the book. So look, I love my fantasy and sci-fi stuff. So I'm pretty okay with a bunch of made up words and lots of weird terminology and 1,000 characters being thrown at you at once. But like, even for me, I think the start of Dune, you're assaulted by terminology and people real quick. Like, to name but a few things, like in the opening, I don't know, chapter or so, there are terms like the Orange Catholic Bible, the Kwisatz Haderach, the Gom Jabbar, the Bene Gesserit. I think Truth Sayer is another one that's thrown in there. You meet like a gazillion characters, and I know from speaking to like non-genre fiction nerds that they've attempted Dune before, and just within the first like chapter, just like, nah, it's not for me. It's too much made up words. There's too many people, and I was kind of kept an ear out for, because I, like you, I read this before as well. I kept an eye out for it this time around, and I think there's a lot in those first couple of pages. Is that something that struck you?
Yeah, it opens quite dense.
Yeah, like really dense.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's very unforgiving about it. And there's lots of stuff in it that you're just left to kind of wonder about what it actually is. To give a poor example, but one that springs to mind immediately, that Orange Catholic Bible. Like, that's never really talked about. It's just put there and mentioned. And like, I kind of get it, or at least I think I get it, as in orange being like the color, a Protestant color, and Catholic being, not Protestants, and this might be a combined future doctrine of Christianity or something like that, is what I got. But at no point is that really talked about, at least to the best of my knowledge. And there's many things like that where it's just kind of like, they say a made up thing and you're like, cool, what is that? And then like 100 pages later you're like, what the hell was that thing again? What's, and there are parts where, at least when I was reading it, I'm like, I'm lost. Like, what's going on?
I didn't mind that example so much. And I think it does do a lot of that, like introduce things and then you kind of have to figure it out through context later on. But like, the Orange Catholic Bible is a fairly, it's kind of throwaway. It's not critical. I think it does a pretty bad job at explaining what the spice is.
Do you think so?
Like, yeah, I remember the first time I read it, I was like, but I still don't really get what it is. Okay, you can put it in food, and it can give you experiences.
Yeah.
It can give you like hallucinations and stuff. But like, what is it? Like, is it a rock or is it a plant? Or
I mean, I just always assumed that it just basically looks like sand.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Wow, that's interesting. I suppose the thing for me with the spice that I found really jarring, and I guess we're already skipping ahead a little bit here, is that it's a bit kind of like, it's a bit all encompassing. Like, everything runs on spice. You eat the spice affects, the way you look. You also put the spice in your spaceships to make them go fast, and it's kind of like,
no, you don't.
Yeah, you do. The bloody interstellar. Oh no, sorry. My bad. No, sorry, my bad. The dudes in space, to navigate space, you have to be drugged up on spice.
Yeah.
To be able to make the spaceships work.
Yeah, but like that's. I mean, that fits in reasonably well, I think, with the other uses of it.
See,
like it's not like it does everything. It's not an all-purpose substance. It is specifically a hallucinogenic drug that makes it's a magic drug.
It's a magic. Yeah, I guess. You see, it makes sense. But I just, how do I phrase this? It feels a little bit like oil to me in a way, where it's like this really, really important commodity that like all of society basically runs on. And if I think about it, I go, yeah, okay, we power our cars with the oil. We wrap all our food in oil-based products. Like, everything around us is like oil-based.
Yeah.
But I don't live in the world where oil permeates my every thought all the time. And there's just, and I guess I don't live in an oil-centric world then, but there's something about when reading Dune that you're just kind of like, okay, we get it. Like, you use the spice a lot, but just everything is meant to be centered around spice in a very overt way. The way IRL, not everything overtly is centered around oil. If you try, do you see what I'm getting at here?
I see what you're getting at. The first thing I'll say is that means I think that you've understood Dune, because that's very, very much the point.
Yeah, it's oil. Yeah.
But like, the second thing is, if this was a story set entirely about two lads on Caladan who have a podcast, it's not going to be all about the spice. But this is a story about the spice. Yeah. So of course it is.
That's fair. I mean, again, it makes sense, but I can't really put into words why I just like calm down with the spice a little bit. Like, and I get it. It's an important commodity. The story is about the spice. I don't know. Maybe if there's like, maybe the story is about the spice, but there's also like a competing resource. Like, there's something else out there that isn't just makes a spice this monolithic thing, right? And you can still have a story about the spice, but there can also be like, there's broader things out there. Well, there's a competing space company that actually have shunned the use of spice, and they actually do a different thing or whatever. But it's just kind of like
that would be a very, very different story, though.
I mean, I guess, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I just need to get over my spice phobia a little bit, but yeah, anyway, to go back to your original point, I always just assumed spice was just like some sort of mineral that's in the sand and you just extract it and then it turns into like, it looks like salt crystals. That's what I think it looks like.
It's explained in the glossary, or in the appendices. It's explained.
Oh, I did not have appendices to the audiobook. What did they say in the glossary?
And this also answers about your thing about the Orange Catholic Bible. That's very clearly explained in the appendices.
So what are those?
The appendices are deadly. The appendices are really good.
Really?
Yes, they are in-universe explanations of things.
Nice.
Which I love.
You do.
I love.
And now we're really jumping around again. The Princess Irulan, who does the little sound bites at the start of every chapter.
Yeah.
That's great in
the
universe.
Bits in italics.
It's in italics and it's very Bill, but it's great universe building. And like, I believe that because it said at the end of the book that the Princess Irulan has like notions of being a writer. I suspect those sound bites are from a future publication of hers. I think.
That's clear in the book.
Yeah.
If you read it, like it's given where those extracts, which of her works those extracts are from.
Yeah, and I think that was really, really fun, and I really enjoyed them. Anyhow, where are we talking? What is the OC Bible, and what is spice via a glossary, if you have it?
So the Orange Catholic Bible is created about 10,000 years before the start of the story, I think. After the Butlerian Jihad, which is the war or the conflict that ended the use of computers.
Yeah,
ended the use of thinking machines.
I've a point on that later, but yeah.
And it was basically it was that space travel was this hugely fundamentally category changing occurrence in the human psyche, and religions were readjusting to deal with this massive change in human experience, this like seismic shift in what humanity knew about, and this was an attempt to make an ecumenical liturgy. Is that the right word? Like an ecumenical text, combining all of the world's major religions.
Oh, so the Orange Catholic Bible assumes all the religions.
Every religion with more than 1 million followers was sent a delegate to this like big convocation or something, and the Orange Catholic Bible was the result of it. And it was like if you read the full account in the appendices, it was hugely controversial, and there was like wars and riots over it, like from adherents of faiths who didn't want it to be who didn't want their faith to be changed by ecumenism. And it was like a thing of massive social upheaval, and it was kind of a failure in its immediate context, but it became an enduring thing of human religion in the millennia afterwards.
Wow, that appendices does sound baller.
You know, it's really good.
And did they make any reference to like the name? Because like again, Orange Catholic implies like it's came out of Christianity. Like nothing about the name implies anything beyond Western religions. So
the word Catholic has a specific, like if you spell it not as a proper noun, it has a specific meaning, which is kind of like it's like holistic. It's like all encompassing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you could describe someone as a person of Catholic tastes, and that means that they're interested in everything.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always kind of thought that the orange was a reference to Buddhism. No, there's certain I don't know, like divisions within Buddhism where they wear like orange robes.
Yeah, I suppose for an audience that does not come from the Anglo-Celtic Isles, the connection of orange to Protestant. I can't say. What's the word, Bill?
Protestantism.
There you go. That's the word. The orange connection there is probably not immediately recognizable.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably right there. That's really interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Good God. Maybe I should read more actual books and not just audiobooks. And what was the other one? What did it say about spice? How do they define spice?
It's really hard to remember because it's quite weird. The spice is a byproduct of the life cycle of the worms.
Yes.
That's why the Fremen call the worms the makers.
Worm poop.
It's so that they have like a fungal stage, kind of. Yeah, it's a biological byproduct of the larval stage of the worms, I think.
Yeah, and I guess what it actually looks like is of little consequence. Like, who cares? You consume it and it's fine. But yeah, anyhow, so that's info dump at the start is a bit much. Jesus, we really bounced around there. My next point was Dr. Yue, right? So for again, this a more micro plot point here is that once the Atreides land on Arrakis, the desert planet that has a spice, there's a plot set in motion by the previous owners of the planet, if you will, the Harkonnens, to try and defeat the Atreides, basically. And to do that, they've turned one of the Atreides' men, and he is tasked with like killing the Duke. My thing here is that maybe it's a bit kind of like low-hanging fruit here, but like I found it really strange that like that whole plot point was just a non-reveal. Like, it's just understood from the start who the traitor is. And that's it. I was kind of like, oh, that's really odd. Like, usually the way I'm used to consuming media is that, like, you're like, oh, there's a traitor and I missed. Who is it? And then at the end of season 10, we finally learn who it is. But here it's like, I'm being facetious, but like page 2, we learned that Dr. Yue is out to kill the Duke. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's really anticlimactic.
I think there's ways you can do stuff like that it's like knowing who the traitor is allows you to kind of appreciate the burn of like waiting for the betrayal to come or whatever. But my issue with it in this case is it's slightly different to that. It's you learn that they have done this impossible thing of breaking the imperial conditioning that prevents doctors who have this conditioning from harming people. Mm-hmm. You learn about that at the exact same time that you learn of the existence of this imperial conditioning. So it's like this huge earth-shattering moment in the actual world building and in the setting is that, we found a way to break the imperial conditioning. But I'm hearing about this in the same breath that I'm hearing of the imperial conditioning. That has no significance to me.
Yeah.
It's not dramatically effective.
Yeah, I mean, was it meant to be though? I took that as kind of just a throwaway explanation as to why he turned. Or the mechanism by which he turned. Like, I didn't read it as like we're meant to be shocked and awed. We just need to understand like this is how it was achieved, and that's fine. Continue on.
Well, I think because it is in the setting, it's a shocking and awful kind of thing. Yeah. But that's not well communicated because, like, in formal terms, we get those bits of information at the same time. So it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like I should be bowled over by this, but I'm not emotionally invested in that concept. So it's okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't say I'm with you on that. Like, I get it, but I don't feel as weird about it as you do. The no reveal thing, I feel pretty not great about, because, like, from my perspective, is that, like, if you don't do the thing where the traitor is hidden to us and then is revealed, you're kind of ruining a second reading, you know? Because that makes me at least want to go back and read it again and be like, oh, can I pick out the clues?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's just completely not a part of this book, because it's just like, it's just told like he's a traitor, it's fine, whatever. And like they have this really fun scene during the course of this traitor arc, where Dr. Yue speaks to Jessica, which is our protagonist's mother. And they have this whole like intense like psychological thing going on where like she kind of knows he's lying. He kind of is trying to evade it, and there's kind of this kind of like subterfuge going on. It's kind of cool and stuff. And like that's great and all, but I think it would have been so much better if all of that just wasn't explained and they just had a conversation, and then you read it the second time and you yourself impart all of this like secondary meanings to what they're saying, because you now know the information. So I think that's a bit of a letdown, having a non-reveal. But that's just my point. Anyway, do you have anything to jump in at this stage? We're at Dr. Yue stage.
No.
Okay. Next.
I have written down breaks in universe rules too soon. Conditioning. So that was my point for that one.
Cool. The next point I have is, these are going to be real lowbrow points, and most of them are kind of like, X is cool. So here we go with the first one of these. Stilgar, which is the leader. He's the leader of the Fremen, or was the leader. Well, still is. He still remains the leader of the Fremen in a way at the end of the book. The Fremen are like the native people of Arrakis. Yeah. And so he's
closest to,
yeah. And so he comes to Arrakeen, which is the city in which our protagonist is living when they're on Arrakis, and he comes there to like meet with the Duke or something. I can't remember the exact reasons why he's there, to form some sort of alliance, something like that. Anyhow, there's a really fun bit of culture in that exchange where we get the Duke and the leader of the Fremen together, where the Duke spits on the table of the Stilgar, the leader of the Fremen, spits on the table of the Duke. And like there's, even in the book, it's hilarious in the movie, and I also found it really funny in the book, where everyone's like aghast and people are ready to like pull out their swords and be all like, how dare you spit at our Duke, and everyone's enraged. And then like there's a moment of like realization, be like, oh no, wait, no, this is actually the highest compliment that can be paid, because water is so precious on this desert world, that the act of giving up your body's water by spitting is like incredibly gratifying, complimentary, that sort of thing. So, and I really enjoy that. It's kind of like, that's a real cool bit of culture building. Of like, of course, they prize their water to an extreme degree, and spitting then is an act of love and things like that, as opposed to an act of like rudeness it is for us. So I absolutely love that, and it's just really fun watching this, like thinking about this big burly like man of the desert comes in, he's like and then all of these like proper posh people are like, oh, what are you doing? And then someone has to be like, no, it's okay, he's saying thank you. So I loved it.
That's a real just simple bit of world building, simple and effective.
And I think there's a lot of it throughout the whole book, particularly surrounding water, where it's just like, I feel like Herbert has really thought about how the native people of Arrakis would view water and bodily fluids and blood and the sort of like, their culture around liquids, basically. And I think he did a really good job. Like, I thought it was really immersive.
Like, your flesh belongs to you, but your water belongs to the tribe.
Communists.
Water communists, exactly. And yeah, it's great. And like when someone dies, they reclaim their body's water for the tribe, and and then that opens up a whole idea of like, what does funeral celebrations look like for the Fremen. And it's just, it's great. Like, he really thought about it really well.
obviously this is not in any way comparable, but like if you think about the culture of Tatooine versus the culture of Dune, like it's different worlds in terms of like exploration of society, and like one is just like, we'll stick it on a desert planet because that's cool, and the other one's kind of like, no, let's actually see what society would look like on a desert planet.
One is like very aesthetic world building, and one is very considered.
Correct. So then, again, jump in at any time, Bill, when you're like, I have a point here. The next point I have is that awkward dinner parties are my jam. Somewhere in the middle of the book, they have a big dinner party, and again, there's lots of like verbal warfare going on, and everyone's just really awkward to one another and throwing jabs and jibes and being just real dicks to one another, underhanded compliments, that sort of thing. I just finished rewatching Downton Abbey. And Downton Abbey is like, that's one of the best bits in that TV series, where they all sit down to have dinner, all the posh people, and you know they would never be rude, but they'll say subtly awful things to one another.
Weaponized politeness, and there was so much of this in the dinner scene in Dune, and I absolutely adore it. I just think it's so fun. I absolutely love it, and I was so happy after having finished Downton Abbey and seeing that. I'm like, yes, I'm back in my happy place. Posh people being snarky with one another at dinner. Yay. Okay, I'm going to jump in with 2 points here.
Do it.
That scene, I think, well illustrates one of the issues that I had with the writing.
Oh, okay.
That it does a lot of directly telling you exactly what various characters are thinking.
Yes.
And it jumps between them very rapidly. Maybe it was just the way my ebook was formatted, that maybe it's more clear on the page that, like, there's a different paragraph and it's a new point of view character or whatever. But there was times where I found it quite difficult to follow that it had changed point of view character. And it can be really unsubtle in moments. It's like someone will say something and then you'll have their internal monologue of the precise import of that statement, and it just tell us a little bit less. Let us like think about things a little bit more. It does a lot of showing. Yeah. Sorry, a lot of telling, not showing, which I know is not always good writing advice, but it's kind of, I think it could have benefited a bit here.
So let me jump in before you go on to the second point. I think the audiobook solved this an awful lot, at least the one I was listening to, because each of the characters was a different person.
Oh, right.
And so when you said that it jumps around a lot, I was like, I didn't even notice that, because it was just like different people were talking. So it felt like normal and conversational. I totally agree with him overtelling stuff. I just found a little bit distracting when at times there's kind of like, Jessica using her Bene Gesserit training divine that X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like she has powers of perception. Like it's fine. Like this has been established. Just let them have a conversation, and I'll infer all of this. It's all right, pal. He was very much into that. It reminds me a little bit of my issues I had with Mistborn, where when in Mistborn they were fighting, Sanderson. When characters were fighting in Mistborn, Sanderson was constantly telling us like the precise amount of metal that they were burning to do the things that they were doing. It's like, Bill swung to the left and he only could do so because he burnt like 5 milligrams of silver in his gut, and then the mercury flared up and he was able, and you're just like, I get it. This is powered by metal. It's fine. Just write a scene, write a normal fighting scene, and every time someone does something horrifically fantastical, I will have assumed that some metal was burnt. It's cool. It's fine. You're grand. Don't worry about it. But so I got a little bit of that vibes from the way Herbert wrote.
Point 2, to jump in about to spin off Downton Abbey. This is slightly tongue in cheek, but I actually found analogues with a different period drama.
I don't know. Downton Abbey is the only period drama I've ever really liked.
I thought you liked this other one.
Oh, I mean, what's this other one?
Poldark.
You found an analogy with Poldark.
An analogue, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, explain.
So, the fundamental conflict in Poldark is between Ross and George, right?
Oh, George is such a dick.
He is the worst character in all of literature.
Oh, he's awful.
So yeah, that's kind of the fundamental conflict there, agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
If you think about like the implications of that, or the what is being said by that, Ross is an aristocrat, and George George represents voracious capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's kind of a regressive thing there. It's like, oh, we shouldn't have all this liberal capitalism. We should have noble patricians to show us the way.
Sure.
I don't think that was necessarily his intent, but that's a reading you could take of it.
Sure.
That's kind of the distinction with the Harkonnens and the Atreides. It is said at one point, I think it's contradicted by other things, but it is said at one point that the Harkonnens were raised up into nobility, and they kind of bought their way into status, and you can see that they are rampant exploiters of the land. Like, they just want to squeeze Arrakis for all it's worth and all that kind of thing. And the Atreides are actually quite noble, and they use their aristocratic privilege for good broadly. So I was just kind of like, it's like that other thing.
That's really interesting. And I suppose what makes an extra wrinkle on that is the fact that the Harkonnens and the Atreides are actually like interbred a little bit as well.
Yes.
That makes it really fun. When it's like, oh, you're evil. It's like, oh, you're evil. We're the same. Oh, crap.
Yeah. As the Warleggans and the Poldarks become somewhat enmeshed.
This essentially is like the prequel to Poldark. Prequel? No, the sequel to Poldark. It's Poldark in the future. Yeah, for sure.
And it's heavily about
commodities.
The industry of uncovering a resource.
Yeah. It's the same book. God damn it. Poldark is Dune. Dune is Poldark. They're the same thing. You've never seen them in the same room together. Okay, my next point. This is skipping forward way far in the text, just because like the middle of the book, like it's fine and all. Like Paul becomes the super Shaman-CPU dude. Actually, wait. Yeah, let me just pop in here. The becoming of the super shaman. CPU.
Let me interrupt myself.
Yeah, I get that this is written in the mid 60s, but like I know as a modern reader, I'm reluctant to engage well with the one trope. It's just, I find it, it's very boring when it's like our protagonist is like this all-powerful, all-seeing, can do basically no wrong sort of person, and they just like, they don't really, if anything, their only flaw is they're a bit too ambitious, and you're like, great, cool, like, could we have like at least maybe two of those characters so we have a bit of conflict? It's just, he basically just becomes OP real fast for me, and I'm like, okay, right, fine, you're a god, great, so this story is just now like, who cares what happens, obviously the god's gonna win. There's a little bit of that for me, but then I'm like, oh, okay, this was written like 80 years ago now, so I'm like, fair enough, let's give it a bit of leeway.
60.
Sorry, yeah, 60 years ago, yeah, so half a century. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But yeah, I get like, yeah, as a modern reader, it's a bit jarring. What do you think about that? I'm assuming you don't particularly love he is the one narrative.
Yeah, I think it is given sufficient in-universe justification that it is a very deliberate thing that he is the product of a process to create someone exceptional.
Yeah.
And that in his own self, his innate qualities are the result of a deliberate process to create someone with those innate qualities. And the circumstance he finds himself in is aided by all of the political and religious manipulation that has occurred. So that kind of gets it a pass from me, but I'm still not jazzed about it.
Yeah, it still doesn't make him any less OP. I think like Avatar is a kind of a cool example of this being done kind of really well. The non-blue people one, where it's like
the M. Night Shyamalan film.
Yeah, correct. Like specifically just that film, yes. Where it's like Aang is literally like a reincarnated deity figure, who is like the bridge between different like spiritual realms and is like has skills that no other human on this world can have. But like throughout the text, like most of it, he's not spent going. Most of the series is not him going around being an OP godlike character, and it's only kind of at the very very end where he kind of like where it lets loose. But most of the time, like he's subject to constraints and weaknesses and flaws and things like that in a way that Paul in this book is not. Like he's just kind of like, I am OP, and there we go. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit antiquated, I think, this one character.
Yeah,
and
I can see what you mean.
I think so. Anyway, so the point I was actually going to make was Aaliyah. So Aaliyah is Paul, our protagonist, his mother Jessica is pregnant. And then midway through the book, she has to undergo some sort of ceremony thing where she gets to consume like a liquid of some description, I think. In order for her to become a reverend mother. So she basically OPs as far as her tech tree will allow her to OP. And this is like the ceremony to make that happen, to get her up into S tier. And as a result of that ceremony, the baby she is carrying is imbued with all the knowledge and power of Jessica and all Reverend Mothers or all Bene Gesserits, something like that. So she basically gets the thoughts and memories of just like everyone in this like mythical magic school thing.
Yeah. And is fully aware and sapient as an adult human from like several months before birth.
Yeah, exactly. She has sentience in the womb, and so she comes out, right? So this baby comes out. Again, her name is Aaliyah. I think she's referred to as Saint Aaliyah in the book as well. So this baby comes out, and like I don't know why it's horrifying, but it's horrifying to read. And all it is that there's a young child who's capable of coherent thought. Right, that's it. Right, like all we see in the book, like she doesn't really do anything kind of like gory, horrific, but just having a child have it like.
I mean, at the end, she kind of does.
Well, she kills the bloke, yeah, with the gun.
And she goes around the battlefield executing wounded enemies.
Oh, I think I missed that bit. Then sorry. I thought all she did was she killed your Harkonnen fella with the gom the gom jabbar.
The gom jabbar, yeah.
Gom jabbar. I totally missed a bit where she just like kills all wounded people. But prior to that, right, she was just knocking around this like tiny little 2-year-old that was having adult conversations and had like all of the underhanded double layered meanings to it. And like reading it, I'm like, I shouldn't really have a problem with this, but like it's just so uncomfortable. And I guess maybe it's something about like the innocence of youth being taken away. And that sort of like naivety and beauty that's in the world when you're very young is just, she's been denied that, and that makes her a figure of like a horrifying
tragic
figure. Yeah, but tragic, but also like scary and horrifying. And I don't know, did you feel this? Because I was weirded out big style by her. And again, for most of the book, all she's doing is going about acting like any other adult in the book.
I found her more sad, I think. It is horrifying. And it's really unsettling. Yeah, it's disturbing. Yeah. But I think the bigger thing I found on this reading was that it's really sad because she's like, in a way, she's still a little girl, or at the minimum, she's still human, and people are horrified by her in universe and reject her and like see her as an abomination, and that's just like a really horrible thing to endure as a human of any age.
Yeah, like she still has feelings.
Yeah.
And just a quick point, when it comes to her being involved in the movies, it'd be interesting to see how they do that, because I could see a talking CGI child, a CGI toddler, being a bit jarring and weird. That's a potential point where the execution in the films might fall. I'm interested to see what happens. They
might like play with the timeline a little, that like it's she's 5 rather than 2 or something.
Exactly, yeah. But then even then, like, get a 5-year-old to deliver like politically complex lines can, it's meant to come across as like horrifying, but it can just come across as being silly. So there's an interesting thing with the movies there. Two more points on my end. The sandworm, the giant worm invasion at the end of the book is equal parts one of the most baller things I've ever read, and also one of the most disappointing.
Interesting.
Because, right, it's like, so again, for people who haven't read the books, like the dominant animal on this planet are these like giant worms, giant sandworms. They're like hundreds of meters long. There's horrifying beasts, right? And we find out in the course of the book that like everyone, all the posh people, they're on the Outworlders, they're completely terrified of these worms. But the Fremen, they are terrified, but they also utilize these worms, the locals on the planet, and they ride these worms, and they're much more holistic sort of involvement with the local ecosystem than the outsiders. And so we learn that they can ride the worms. So then it makes sense that at the big battle at the end, they will ride the worms into the battle. Can you imagine like coming down the dune on a giant ass, like horrific slug thing? Like amazing. But the problem was that from my perspective, that whole bit lasted like 1 second, right? It's kind of like we were told like there was a giant battle, sandworms came, lots of people died, and now we're going to get right back to the politics and
it more or less happens off screen.
And exactly. And I'm like, I kind of like what I want here, right? Is I want a Helm's Deep scenario. Like I want to see battle, and I want to get into the trenches with the warriors. I want to see characters we know die in very close contact quarters, and then at the very end, when all hope is lost, I want to see these worms like coming flying over like these dunes, and the Fremen are on it, and the reinforcements arrive, and then finally it's won. But it's all just kind of like there was a battle and worms and done. That's it. And you're like, oh, Herbert, god damn it.
What I think is really cool there, I mean, I think it is a great, I'd agree with you there, it's a great image, but we don't really get to see the image. What is also very cool though in that sequence is how they get to where they're going with the worms. There's a kind of legal and conventional ban on the use of atomic weapons, but like with a neat bit of sort of reading it precisely legally, the ban is on using atomics against humans. So instead they use them to like go through a mountain. Like they blow a hole in the mountain range that they can get the worms through. And it's like, oh, no one would think that we can use atomics. There's this like total block on using them, and they just like come up with this fun way to actually get around that, and that no one expected. I always enjoyed that part.
Yeah. I agree, yeah, it was. And then he had it out with the Emperor at the end, Paul, when he was like, how dare you use atomics? Well, actually, if you refer to chapter 3.2, subsection 1, I thought that was really fun. But again, all off screen, and like the whole book was, and I appreciate like not just writing about violence, right? Because that can get real boring real fast. And like a lot of the book was about exploring the culture of Arrakis and the mythos that is Paul and all that. But like, it's so skewed that like 99% of the book is that exploring the mythos, and then like a tiny little mention at the end towards this little battle, and that's it. And you're kind of like, at this point, man, almost just don't include it. Like, just don't have a big battle. Like, have more of that stuff. Just, the Emperor comes and he's subjugated via political machinations, and you're done. It's like, make a bigger deal out of this bloody sandworm invasion. You blew a hole in the side of a mountain, and giant-ass worms came through with, like, Fremen with blue eyes riding on their back. How baller is that? Like, lean into it more. And then my final point is the whole ending sequence isn't good. I don't think, because it just, again, it's such a slow burn, the whole book, and then within the space of, like, a chapter or two, it's just over. And Paul is suddenly king of the universe. And you're like, wait, what? How did that happen? And it all happens so fast. And like lots of things just wrap up really quick, and I really did not like that at all. Like it really, this book is already long, but I kind of felt like it needed to go on a little bit longer to make that climactic event of becoming emperor really fit well and give the weight that it needed. It feels very kind of sudden and neat, doesn't it? Yeah, way too overly neat. Yeah, precisely. That was my big takeaway. I think the first time I read it. I think to the extent that I enjoyed it, was like, it's a good book with a bad ending. Correct. I would 100% agree with that. And I guess maybe, if you read the whole the whole, is there like 8-9 books, something like that? It's a lot of books.
Frank Herbert wrote 6, and then there was meant to be 2 more, which his son wrote, and his son wrote a lot of prequels and interquels and stuff.
So there's a lot. So I guess maybe if you read everything, then it makes sense or whatever. But again, this goes back to our intertextuality thing a little bit. It's kind of like this book should work on its own as a thing, you know, and on its own as a thing, it doesn't work because that end part, it's too quick, too neat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a formally flawed in that regard, but I think it is kind of a complete story. I think that, you know, there is something there, and I think it doesn't require sequels as well. I mean, I haven't read. I read the second one, which I remember thinking conversely that it wasn't a very good book, but I did like the ending. But again, that was a long time ago.
I've not read any of the other ones actually, so and I probably won't read them until there are movies about them. Just to do with the reverse, I kind of like that sometimes. Broad. So that's basically my chronology of things. But just some 3 more broad things that you can discuss with me if you want, but just putting it out there.
Well, I've got a lot more points, so I can go for a while.
God, this episode's gonna be so long. I'm so sorry. Maybe we need to make these book reviews their own episodes in the future. Because they can go on. Robophobia. I really enjoy the trope of it's the far future, but we don't use robots and computers for the most part. I really enjoy that, and it lends itself really well to sort of a science fantasy setting, which I really enjoy. Because sometimes computers can just be used as a form of magic, and it's a bit meh. So yeah, I love that they were like, the culture bit of like, we don't make computers in the image of humans or whatever. I love that. I think it's great, and the story is richer because of it. So props to Herbert there. And the other thing, the props I would give him is that there was a non-discussion about terraforming, which is also really fun because the Fremen want to transform the world into a lush paradise. And we didn't get, unlike like Red Mars, we didn't get pages and pages and pages of philosophical debate about whether that's a good thing. It was just kind of presumed that like that's what the Fremen want. Cool, that's great. And there was no kind of ethical discussion because again, like there's only so much of that you can read where all the arguments have just been laid out, and you're just rehashing the to terraform or not. The discourse. So I really enjoy that it was just kind of like that was mentioned that that's a thing that the Fremen want to do, turn Arrakis into a green planet, and that was it. Good, done. I liked it. And my final point is I dislike when settings are set in the far future and the dates used are in like 5-6 digits. Where it's like it's the year 13,208. Because and just a small point, but like one would assume after a while, surely for the sake of like sorting or something, that they might like just rejigger the dates. So instead of it being the year 13,208, it could be like, you know, 1-4 or something. You know, like just wrap it all up. Abstracted away a little bit, because otherwise, like, what's the end game here? Like, the date is the year 12,400,000,000, and like, what, you know, that's ridiculous. So whenever I see like it's the future, the year 10,000, I'm like, oh, stop it. No one's going to do that. You can't sort anything anymore. Come on, just rejigger the numbers. God damn it.
That last point is bizarre to me.
The rejiggering the numbers.
Yeah. Why would you? Like, if it's like, I mean, I don't think people kind of you said like, you know, what's the end game? But I don't think people think in those terms. They just start counting and then they stop counting if something stops them from counting. But if there's been a continuous society that has numerically counted their years for 10,000 years, why wouldn't they get to 10,000?
Well, okay. Again, there's no computers here, so my point is relatively moot in terms of Dune specifically. But like sorting becomes a problem after 9,999.
Why?
Well, because like, well, okay, the way I sort all my files on a computer, I sort them year, month, day, right?
Oh, for God's sake.
So when we get to the year 9,999, my sorting works correctly. But once we skip over to 10,000, the sorting breaks because 10,000 will now be one of the first entries. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, but that's based on some very specific assumptions about your preference and about like how certain kinds of numeric data are parsed. Like,
I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, like, lots of important numeric data is parsed like that. You know, like...
Yeah, but that's... but I'm saying that is one very specific assumption about how it's parsed. Like, that is a world-building assumption that you are making. It's not like it's a natural thing that everything will be parsed in 4 digits, or that we don't have 8,000 years to come up with something that can accommodate extra digits and not disrupt the existing systems we have.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, fair. If you're going to be like some other thing is invented, yeah, sure. But like, I don't know. I don't think it's that like specific, because like if you count, right?
But like, why would it not happen when you're going from centuries to millennia? When you're going from 3 to 4 digits? Like, it's...
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it would. Yeah, I guess I'm only thinking about it because we're in a culture of 4 digits.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the problem arising when we go to 5 digits. But yes, it would arise every time there are new digits, a new digit tacked on. So like, just instead of doing that, just do like freaking put a suffix at the end that says like the first age or something like that. The year 200 of the first age, or something like that. Like, it's just, it'll break it. Like,
but it only breaks it if you like refuse to change this one very minor specific thing about how we frame and consider and parse.
But also, I agree. Okay, I agree with that to a certain extent. But also, there is just like I suspect that a lot of humans probably don't deal well with giant numbers, right? Like, I don't ever expect there to be like an iPhone 4000. Actually, no, that doesn't count because they might just skip to that for coolness. But there's not going to be like an iPhone 4113, right? Like, they're going to do something to the numbers to make them more palatable. And also from a linguistic point of view, like, it takes a lot of effort to say, in the year 13,342, right? Like, that takes a lot of linguistic effort, and that just keeps becoming more and more. And so maybe there's an argument to me that eventually, like, the speakers will just want to grind this down into something that's just a little bit easier to parse, because that's a lot to say,
Yeah, but like, first of all, like, you don't necessarily have to say the entire name of the thing every time you refer to a year. Like, people didn't say 1998, the year of our Lord. They said 98. In the 19th century,
yeah, that's
people
fair.
said the year 2 to refer to 1802. Like,
yeah, that's actually a good point. That like, people will just do this reduction, outside of the formality of the date. The date remains the same, just keeps counting up, but people will just be like, it's the year 2.
Yeah.
Even though it's 30. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you know what? I take back what I said. You've convinced me. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Jesus. Oh my God. It's nearly a 3-hour episode. Oh my God. Okay. Right. Bill, give me some points, and then we must wrap this up because people will be asleep.
Okay. What have I got here? So one thing that I commonly see said is that it is an explicit kind of analog to the real world, in that spice is oil and so on. And I want to say that when I'm saying these are not my beliefs, these are a thing that is said. That it's parallel to, in other ways, that the necessary resource for society that society like requires comes from a desert inhabited by religious fanatics, right? Now, there is obviously a huge amount of like Islamophobia inherent in making that statement, which is one thing that I do not agree with, but I'm not qualified to further address. But I also wonder about that. Like, was that a resonant thing in 1965? I wouldn't have thought that it was. I wouldn't have thought that it was. And is that like a thing that people are kind of retroactively applying to it as a deliberate analog? Because I wouldn't have thought that would have had resonance before, like, the oil crisis in the 70s, and general Western awareness of Islam. And the idea of Islam as like as violent, or the meaning of jihad as a word, or the understanding of the meaning of jihad as a word, I get the impression it is something that is misrepresented in Western discourse. That wouldn't have made like a lot of that wouldn't have been familiar to people until like the 70s or 80s or something. So that is something that I think that analysis of it feels kind of anachronistic to the context it was written in. But I don't know.
That's interesting. Interesting.
That's something I thought about for a while when people make that comparison. It seems like would Herbert have thought of it in that way? It seems like the context he wrote it in wouldn't have had a lot of the elements there. It would have had some of them, but not like the specific kind of Islamophobic ones.
Do you think, at the risk of, again, making this like a 4-hour show, do you think that maybe what people are going for is a much more surface level analogy? They're just kind of like, spice is an important commodity. What is an important commodity on Earth? Oh, it's petroleum.
Well, that's definitely there, but I have seen it said that the other thing that I get specifically, it's a desert, and I mean the Fremen culture has explicit Islamic influences, certainly, arguably roots.
That's interesting. That's
because their Zen Sunni is their origin culture. They were Zen Sunni.
And what is that? Is that a made up term?
It's so I think it's meant to be a syncretism of Islam and Buddhism.
I see. Zen, Sunni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. What else have I written here? Okay, we didn't actually talk that much. Well, no, I suppose we did, but I have some very specific world building reactions here. Love the language stuff in it. Seeing just like little bits of things relating to Earth languages, I thought was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
A Cielago is a bat. That was neat.
Oh, what's that in the book? What's a Cielago?
Cielago it's a little bat creature that's used to carry messages.
Oh, okay. Wait, and you're saying it's neat because the word Cielago means bat in some Natlang.
Murcielago is the Spanish for bat.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's a type of Lamborghini.
That's right. It is. Yeah.
World building. What have I written here? Plausibly complex, layered, messy societies. I really like that. It's not everything's really, really neat.
Yep.
And it's kind of, you can see real world things leading to it. That's something I really enjoyed. There's specific kind of analogues of things. I'll come back to those in a second. I kind of felt that the ecosystem of Dune couldn't sustain a massive thing like a sandworm. That felt a little unrealistic to me. But you read in the appendices that it lives on plankton in the sand. So maybe it does. And Herbert apparently worked out a lot of this stuff, that the biology in it made sense.
I read somewhere, that like part of the whole reason why he wrote this book was just an ecological exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The religious world building in it, because that's something that we've talked about in the last 2 episodes as well. So incredibly cynical. Like, both in what we see in the narrative, that the Bene Gesserit have seeded myths that are useful to them and expedient to them all around the society, so that when Jessica, who's been Bene Gesserit trained, finds herself in Dune, she's able to like rely on knowing what the Bene Gesserit will have said. Yeah. And how they will have altered people's beliefs. It's very, very cynical. Which is interesting because so much of it kind of is true.
Yeah. The Missionario Protectiva is what it's referred to as.
Exactly.
And then like the, missionaries spreading Christianity, one could say that's quite cynical as well, implanting the religion of the white man into non-white places as a means of kind of like...
Well, I don't think that's a good analog for what they're doing. What they're doing is they're introducing elements. They're not changing the religion. They're not replacing a religion with their own religion. They're doing something a lot more subtle. That they're manipulating the beliefs so that they will be able to exploit those beliefs.
Yeah.
And then with this thing about the Orange Catholic Bible, again from the appendices, there's the Council of Ecumenical Translators is the group that wrote the Bible. And, you know, they're responding to this huge change that has happened in human society. And you can look at that kind of optimistically. That is all it is. Like, you know, we have had this change in our consciousness and religion is going to change as a result of it. Or you can look at it, again, incredibly cynically, that it's now politically expedient for this to occur, that, you know, religion needs to be altered for political reasons.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the more likely one, because overall, the setting is so incredibly bleak.
Yeah.
It's like, in ways I kind of had forgotten. Like, it's so, like, genocide is just such a casual concept in these characters' affairs. It's like, okay, well, I guess we just need to kill off all the Fremen.
Yeah.
And even Thufir Hawat, who's like the Atreides Mentat, when he thinks the Atreides are dead and he's trying to get in with the Harkonnens so he can betray them, he just goes along with this genocide to further his own ends of betraying the Harkonnens. And it's really awful.
I will say your man Baron Harkonnen, he is a particularly unsavory, disgusting, horrible character.
And yeah, both in universe and kind of afterwards, like the fact that they made the villain a fat gay rapist is a bit like, doesn't scan so well 60 years later. That's problematic.
That I can't believe I didn't actually make that connection to that, like, stereotype. The whole thing surrounding him is awful.
Yeah. So that's most of those points taken. Okay, actually, no, one more kind of world-building-y kind of thing. Two more world-building-y kind of things. You know that Kwisatz Haderach, which is Paul's, what the Bene Gesserit are trying to create, and that's what Paul is.
Yeah, the Shaman-CPU.
Yeah. Do you know that's based on a real-world concept?
No.
So, linguistically anyway, in Hebrew, there's the concept of Kefetzat Haderach, or Haderesh. I'm definitely mispronouncing that. I don't know how to read neither Hebrew nor Romanizations thereof. So apologies for that. But it means the shortening of the way, or the contraction of the road.
Oh, yeah, that's what it means literally in Dune as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it does, yeah. No, it doesn't refer to a person in the Hebrew, but it's like a thing. It can either mean sort of like teleportation or bilocation, or a kind of a miraculous event of you know, doing something sooner than it should be possible. Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, that's kind of neat. And I was actually just reading the other day about the use of slave troops in various Islamic cultures of the Middle Ages. And it's pretty much just what the Sardaukar are. Yeah, the
Sardaukar as well. Like, we're meant to feel like hostile towards them, but again, I feel kind of sad. They're enslaved people, and they're, raised and trained on a prison planet for the sole purpose of killing. Like, it's a whole, like, basically a race entirely subjugated for violence. And you're like, oh.
I didn't think of them as being a coherent race as such. It was just that people are sent there, and from the people who are sent there, that's how the Sardaukar are populated. Oh, I thought, sorry, I could have missed this in the text, but I thought it was that the Sardaukar are natives of the prison planet, and they are subjugated there and trained, and then sent out. Possibly. That wasn't what I took from it, or at least it wasn't just that. Well, because they made analogies in the text about how the Fremen could literally be the Sardaukar, in that they live on an extremely hostile world, make that a prison planet, and train like Sardaukar 2.0. So again, the impression I got was that just like the Fremen, the Sardaukar are like a ethnicity of people. Okay. Yeah. Could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, 'cause there was actually a thing on Ask Historians on Reddit the other day about this thing of slave soldiers, and it's just it's really interesting. So I guess that must be something that Herbert deliberately did. They're essentially janissaries, and they're raised from this, or even more like the Mamluks, who were they were Turkic. and they were kind of mainly horse archers, I think. And they were raised on the steppe, so they were born to the saddle, and they were born to tactics and combat, and then they became powerful in Egypt, and at one point actually had power. They were the rulers, but they stayed a distinct group that had ties to their ancestral thing. They didn't settle in the same way in Egypt as other kind of conquerors or people who take over empires often do. Wow. But anyway, yeah, so that's interesting. And again, it's the thing about the harsh environment there and the being raised to brutality, or not brutality, but being raised to difficult scenarios and the tactics and the violence and stuff. A fun historical note. My final thing is there kind of a meta or postmodern thing that you can kind of take out of Dune? Paul is very aware of his position in history and in legend. So in story, essentially.
Yeah.
And that is kind of reflected in the fact that the start of each chapter has these extracts from hagiographies about him.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, is there kind of a reading of it that it is kind of, the text itself isn't totally neutral? Or that there's kind of a, I don't know, I can't quite articulate it here, but I feel like there's something postmodern, there's something meta you can get out of it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, with the way Herbert loves to be entirely literal and explain to us exactly what the characters are thinking, I find it a bit difficult to think that there's an unreliable narrator type thing going on. I don't know. I certainly didn't get that. I didn't have that thought reading the book, certainly.
Yeah. It occurred to me kind of, I'm not sure, about halfway through the book, I was like, he's talking a lot about, or Paul is thinking a lot about him as a character. He thinks about himself as a kind of a character in without direct agency because of the tide carrying him along and being tied into things because of prophecy and stuff. And I don't know. I think there's something there.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't say I picked up on anything like that. But perhaps I must.
But you can see what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just don't. I wouldn't have immediately spotted something. I'd have to think about that and see. Yeah, the crack is there. Anyhow, Dune.
I think that is all my points.
Hey, oh my god, 3-hour show. Oh, maybe in the future we really should do a separate book review recording, because I guess it allows us more time to elaborate on all the points as opposed to trying to fit it into Green Room. Might look at doing that, perhaps. We can have more of a digression about dates. If it's a separate show. Anyway, so that is Dune. Like I said, folks, we are going to do Broken Earth Book 3, The Stone Sky. Links in the show notes for next time we review a book. Pick up a copy, go over read, and then you can join in the shenanigans. Bill.
Edgar.
This is us. Thank you so much for coming back, Bill.
I just can't quit.
Can't quit. Folks, thank you for coming back. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for supporting the show on Patreon. Links are in the show notes.
Shout out to chat.
Hi, chat. Not you, Bob. I don't like you. The rest of chat. We will see you all next month. Until next time, Edgar out.